Chapter 553. When He Jiaxi heard this, she immediately laughed. Jing Yunjiao, it's true that you're favored by Master Tang, but who do you think you are? Let me tell you, did you see the man who came with me? That's my godfather, James. He came this time to cooperate with Yuling Wines. The temptation isn't low. No matter how unyielding Pak Yuan is, it's impossible for him to refuse. As long as he grasps this opportunity, Yuling Wines will be able to make a comeback. Moreover, my godfather has always listened to me. Do you think that you can chase me away with your shallow relationship with Pak Yuan? If not, she wouldn't have rushed back so quickly. During this period of time, she sent people to keep an eye on Jing Yunjiao. She found that Jing Yunjiao's days were extremely easy. His grades were still among the best, his friends were increasing, and his relationship with the Tang family was getting better. She couldn't bear it. No matter how lucky Jing Yunjiao was, she was still just a nobody who had no one to rely on. Now that she knew her godfather, her father's attitude towards her had changed. If she wanted to deal with Jing Yunjiao, her father would no longer stop her. As for the Tang family, she wasn't doing this for Tang Zihua. Grandfather Tang didn't have so many things to do. Listening to He Jiaxi's words, Jing Yunjiao was slightly surprised. You're saying that James wants to cooperate with Yuling Wines? That's right, so, even if I have to scram, I want you to scram. He Jiaxi smiled. Jing Yunjiao smiled meaningfully. He Jiaxi, did anyone tell you that you're just thinking that you're infallible? You're as stupid as a pig. Whether Pak Yuan agreed to cooperate or not, it all depended on her. Not to mention that she didn't understand James at all, even if it was really good for Yuling Wines, she couldn't disregard her dignity for that little benefit. Money and status, as long as she was alive, she could earn them. No matter how easy it was to take a shortcut, it wasn't as safe as the road she opened up herself. Jing Yunjiao. He Jiaxi coldly snorted. You're really asking for it. In the next second, He Jiaxi suddenly stood up, and the glass in her hand fell to the ground. Pa! It shattered into pieces. The red wine inside spilled out and stained her shoes. Jing Yunjiao. You dare to knock over my cup? He Jiaxi suddenly yelled loudly. Her voice was sharp, and James, who was not far away, saw her and immediately came over. He hurriedly said in his broken language, Oh, Jiaxi, what's wrong with you? Are you hurt anywhere? James, she bullied me. He Jiaxi pointed at Jing Yunjiao and said, These are the shoes you gave me, and now she's dirted them. My dear baby, don't be angry. I'll ask her to apologize to you. After James finished speaking, he immediately stared at Jing Yunjiao. However, before he could speak, Pak Yuan and Xiong Jin walked over and said, Yunjiao, how are you? You didn't get scared, right? James was stunned for a moment. Mr. Bai, is this your friend? She was rough with my goddaughter. What do you think we should do about this? Pak Yuan frowned. Just now, James chatted with him for a while. He said that he was interested in investing in Yuling Wines and expanding the winery. In addition, he would spend money to package it and spread its reputation abroad. Regarding this, he was tempted, but he hadn't made a decision yet. After all, the company wasn't his, so he still needed to know Jing Yunjiao's intentions. It was just that he didn't have the time to tell Jing Yunjiao before a conflict arose. Pak Yuan saw a trace of coldness flash across Jing Yunjiao's face and immediately said, Mr. James, she's my sister. She can't be rough with anyone. On the contrary, I think your goddaughter seems to have scared my sister and her friend. Chapter 554. Pak Yuan understood Jing Yunjiao the best. She usually looked cold, but in fact, she treated different people differently. For example, the friends around her. Even if she was in a bad mood, she would be gentler than usual. She would never speak coldly to anyone she approved of. On the contrary, if she rejected someone, she would not give them the slightest bit of face. Just like now, Jing Yunjiao looked at the girl with disgust and ridicule, as if she had already guessed that she would cause trouble. She should be an old acquaintance. At this time, Pak Yuan's words stunned James. He Jiaxi frowned and said, James, what does Manager Bai mean by this? Is he not giving you face? Manager Bai, are you going to go against my wishes for this little sister? Jiaxi is my goddaughter. I love her very much. I absolutely won't allow anyone to bully her. James's voice rose and fell. It was said that he was serious and somewhat comical. Pak Yuan was just about to speak when he saw Jing Yunjiao stand up. I heard that Mr. James wants to cooperate with Yu Ling Wines. Jing Yunjiao said. I'm considering it. But if Manager Bai is so insincere, then there's no room for discussion. I hope that my business partner is trustworthy. James said again. Jing Yunjiao snorted and said, so when Mr. James says trust, you mean obedience? Then may I ask, are you looking for a business partner or a slave company? In business cooperation, it was important to bring enough benefits to the other party. Sometimes, for the sake of benefits, one could temporarily suffer. But this James might not be so trustworthy. Jing Yunjiao, do you have the right to speak here? He Jiaxi said coldly. Whether I have the right to speak or not is not up to you. Jing Yunjiao opened his mouth and coldly glanced at the two. He said, but what I'm interested in is, if Manager Bai cooperates with Mr. James, how are you two going to deal with me? James was obviously digesting Jing Yunjiao's words. His reaction was slower and he glanced at He Jiaxi. He Jiaxi was disgusted by Jing Yunjiao's confident look. Jing Yunjiao was a person who had to pretend to be arrogant at all times. This CEO Bai either didn't react in time, or he wanted to see James' sincerity. He Jiaxi coldly snorted. Jing Yunjiao, I've never thought of making things difficult for you. As long as you wipe the dirt off my shoes, I'll let this matter go. The banquet was still going on nearby. Faint melodious sounds could be heard, and some people on the dance floor were enjoying themselves. However, some people were also attracted by the commotion. Among them were Xiao Haiqing's father, Xiao Daoan, and Jiang Rong. Sitting at the side, Jing Yunjiao was a little nervous. Ever since she arrived, this miss he had been acting strangely. Could it be because of her that she was arguing with Jing Yunjiao? His eyes flickered, and he looked nervous and scared. Jing Yunjiao chuckled. Cleaning your shoes? I don't think it's necessary, because these shoes are cleaner than your face, Jing Yunjiao said with a poisonous tongue. Jing Yunjiao. He Jiaxi gritted her teeth and quickly turned to look at James. Godfather, look at her. She was the one who bullied me before, and now she's still so arrogant. She had found the big boss of Yu Ling Wines to come over. What reason did Jing Yunjiao have to show off in front of her? She's simply unreasonable. This kind of girl is really too uneducated. James was furious. He stared at Pak Yuan. CEO Bai. Your sincerity is not enough. Chapter 555. Pak Yuan felt that it was a pity, but he immediately felt that it was ridiculous. Losing this investment was indeed not a good thing, but it was just an investment. It wasn't like it had never happened before. Yu Ling Wines would still consider whether to accept other people's interference. Their domestic rice bowl wasn't stable yet, so they weren't in a hurry to sell overseas. This Mr. James thought that he had taken his lifeline and even learned to threaten him. However, he didn't know that the lifeline of Pak Yuan and even the entire Yu Ling Wines was Jing Yunjiao. Mr. James, what you said is wrong. What do you mean by not sincere enough? We don't have any sincerity at all. Pak Yuan said directly. What do you mean by that? James didn't understand. The meaning is very simple. Yu Ling Wines doesn't care about Mr. James' investment. Don't you understand? Jing Yunjiao laughed. When this was said, the surrounding people were stunned. What was Jing Yunjiao? How could he say such things so decisively? However, there were also some people who just laughed and didn't take it seriously. Those people knew that Jing Yunjiao had another identity as a doctor. For them, it was natural for a miracle doctor like Jing Yunjiao to have some arrogance. If she was a soft persimmon that could be easily bullied, even if she was a miracle doctor, no one would give her face. Miracle doctors were different from ordinary doctors. They were existences that could save lives at critical moments. Offend her? Wouldn't that be giving away a protective talisman for nothing? These people weren't that stupid. Only those who thought that Jing Yunjiao was really just an ordinary student would think so. He Jiaxi was so angry that she laughed. Jing Yunjiao, you are really crazy. Who do you think you are? Slap. Jing Yunjiao raised his hand and slapped her. Then, he swung his wrist. You ask me who I am? Miss He, didn't your family teach you to be polite to others? This kind of question isn't very pleasant to hear. I don't mind teaching you properly. Jing Yunjiao. He Jiasi covered her face. You actually slapped me? Alright, CEO bye, let's call this deal off. Don't even think about a billion-yuan investment. Pak Yuan raised his eyebrows. Actually, it's just 1 billion. We don't really care. Their Jade Spirit wines had earned more than 1 billion. Although their sales were only about 10 billion yuan, which was not comparable to those large-scale food companies, their net profit was not low. However, outsiders did not know that most of their raw materials were provided by Jing Yunjiao's secret base, so they thought that their net profit this year was only a few 100 million yuan or less. In fact, the money was not only that. However, Pak Yuan paid Jing Yunjiao the money for the raw materials according to the rules, so outsiders didn't know. Therefore, Yuling Wines didn't really care about the investment of outsiders. After all, if there were more investors, the company would more or less have some changes. At present, there were also some risks. However, Pak Yuan's words shocked everyone. He didn't care about 1 billion. Although there were many companies in Ning City, none of them dared to say that they did not care about 1 billion yuan within 2 years of starting their business. Even some old companies that had been developing for decades felt as if they had been hit by 1 billion yuan. Bai Yuan, he couldn't have gone crazy, right? Although Jade Spirit Wines was already a household name in Ning City, he couldn't be so arrogant, right? He Jiasi's face was ashen, and her chest was heaving up and down. Don't regret it. Saying such big words, aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Miss He, straighten your tongue first. I'll give you 2 choices now. Either you bend down and clean up all these glass shards, or you get out. It's your choice. Chapter 556. Jing Yunjiao stood in front of He Jiasi, and his aura directly suppressed He Jiasi's. He Jiasi's appearance was sweet, and her looks were also outstanding. The gown she wore today made her look even more beautiful. Her flower-like appearance exuded an intoxicating fragrance, and people couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. However, compared to Jing Yunjiao, she was not just a little bit better. If He Jiasi wasn't good-looking, the He family wouldn't have had the confidence to marry He Jiasi into the Tang family. However, in front of Jing Yunjiao now, He Jiasi, who had just returned from a trip abroad, seemed a little more vulgar. Jing Yunjiao was arrogant and cold, like a white plum blossoming in the cold snow. His skin was creamy, and his eyes were like cold stars. When he spoke, people's hearts trembled, as if he had the power to see through people's hearts. He Jiasi's lips turned pale, and the muscles on her chin trembled slightly. Jing Yunjiao, you're just a bastard without parents. You don't have the right to be above me, He Jiasi said angrily. Get out. On what basis? As for cleaning up the glass shards, she wasn't a cleaning auntie. She couldn't wrong herself in front of so many people. Jing Yunjiao humphed lightly. I don't have a father or mother, but I'm not the lowly one. Director Bai, please hire security. It's such a good day, I don't want such an uneducated person to disturb everyone's mood. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, Pak Yuan whispered something to the waiter beside him. Obviously, he did as Jing Yunjiao said. CEO Bai, don't you think you need to reconsider? Someone in the same industry reminded him out of goodwill. Was there a need to be so ruthless for a neighbor's sister? This Miss He, even if she had nothing to do with Mr. James, was still the daughter of the He family. His actions would undoubtedly offend the He family. Hai Qing, Jing Yunjiao is insensible. Are you insensible as well? Go and persuade Jing Yunjiao not to cause trouble. They're all children. Why don't you apologize to Miss He on his behalf? Xiao Daoan said as he walked to his daughter's side. He knew about the He family. The reason why Hong Tian had cooperated with him back then was because the He family had offended old Master Tang. However, although they were in the same industry, the He family ran various industries and was much bigger than the Xiao family, so there was not much competition at all. Besides, it was better to make a friend than an enemy, especially this James. He should be a person who specialized in investment. If they gave him face, there would be a lot of benefits. However, the moment Xiao Daoan said that, Xiao Haiqing turned her head and smiled contemptuously at him. Dad, if you want to apologize, why are you dragging me along? You're really regressing as you live. Has your dignity been fed to the dogs? Ever since the incident with the Hong family, her relationship with her family had been strained. She wanted to stay away from her father more than anyone else, but their relationship was not something that could be easily broken. He had raised her for more than 10 years, and the blood connection was not something that could be broken so easily. Therefore, it was just mutual torture. No one would be able to enjoy themselves. Xiao Daoan's face was stern. Haiqing, do you even have a brain? Don't you know that Jing Yunjiao is using her beauty to please others? Today, CEO Bai rejected James for her because it was still fresh. If CEO Bai hates her one day, he will remember everything she did. It's not like you don't know CEO Bai's connections. If he really gets angry, what if he is implicated? Do you think our family's situation is not bad enough? Chapter 557. Xiao Daoan's voice was so soft that even Su Chu and Gan Jinchen, who were standing beside Xiao Haiqing, couldn't hear him clearly. Moreover, their gazes and attention were all attracted by He Jiasi, so they didn't pay any attention to Xiao Daoan, this elder. However, Jing Yunjiao was skilled in martial arts, so how could these words escape her ears? Naturally, she heard everything clearly. Using my beauty to serve others? Xiao Haiqing chuckled. Dad, are you sure you're talking about Jing Yunjiao? Why do I feel like you're the one using your beauty to serve others? You're already so old, yet you still have to suffer and accompany Auntie Jiang. Can your body take it? Her mocking attitude instantly made Xiao Daoan's old face flush red. He wasn't actually that old, only nearing 40, and was at the prime of his life. However, it would be strange if he wasn't angry when his daughter said such things. Haiqing. Xiao Daoan couldn't help but shout coldly. It gave everyone around a fright, and it instantly attracted the attention of others. At this time, the security guard hadn't arrived yet. Some people were persuading them, while others were observing. When they heard such a sudden roar, they all looked over in surprise and displeasure. Xiao Daoan's old face twitched, and he hurriedly smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, everyone. My daughter isn't very obedient. I was just teaching her a lesson. Actually, if you ask me, this matter isn't that serious. Isn't it just a broken cup? It's fine if you get a waiter to come over and reason things out, but if it really doesn't work. How about this? My Haiqing is also used to this kind of rough work. Just let her clean it up a little. Why would we need to hire security? Don't you guys think so? Xiao Daoan said again. When Jing Yunjiao heard that, she was a little surprised. Xiao Daoan wasn't like this before. Although he valued benefits, it wasn't to the point where he would completely cast aside his daughter. At least, he would still use his father's love as a fig leaf and wouldn't express the filth in his heart so directly. However, Xiao Haiqing wasn't surprised. No one would have thought that a person whose company was on the verge of bankruptcy would do such a thing. Her father did indeed care about her, but when he found out that his daughter had a conflict with his interests, his nature was revealed. Moreover, in the past few months, the father and daughter had either quarreled, and they had never stopped. Even if there was any familial affection, it had been completely obliterated by the hysteria again and again. Uncle Xiao, what are you talking about? Why do you let Haiqing do it? Gan instantly, he couldn't understand. Xiao Daoan scrutinized Gan Jinchen. When he realized that the boy looked different from old Tang's golden grandson, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, they're all children. It's better to be harmonious. There's no need, their essays is A's. It's just a little SS. After that, he directly pulled Xiao Haiqing to squat down and reached out to pick up the glass shards on the ground. However, the moment Xiao Haiqing bent over, Jing Yunjiao grabbed her other arm and pulled her back. Xiao Haiqing's lips curled into a self-mocking smile. Dad, you're really no different from a clown now. Xiao Daoan was stunned. A clown? Of course, he knew that he was being too petty and cowardly at this moment, But what could he do? He couldn't afford to offend anyone present. He put in a lot of effort to come to such an occasion in hopes of showing his face in front of others. After coming to Serene City, he realized that sometimes, the company's was not that important. Even if he was down to earth when doing business, he couldn't compare to those with connections. In order to protect the company, he had already lost all his face. What was this little's? Chapter 558. Xiao Daoan laughed dryly and picked up all the things on the floor. The others looked at each other in dismay. Pak Yuan's expression was strange. He really didn't know if this Xiao Daoan was stupid or smart. If Jing Yunjiao was really just an ordinary little sister of the Lin family, his actions would indeed be giving both parties a way out of the situation to prevent things from getting out of hand. However, the problem was that Jing Yunjiao wasn't an ordinary little sister at all. Moreover, he thought that James was also quite important to Yu Ling Wines, right? But in reality, he wasn't exaggerating. Now that it was confirmed that they couldn't accept James' investment, Xiao Daoan's bootlicking had really hit the nail on the head. All right, haven't these things been cleaned up? Miss He, don't be angry. I think Jing Yunjiao didn't do it on purpose just now. Xiao Daoan said with a smile. Xiao Haiqing sneered and didn't say anything. Jing Yunjiao also looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. He Jiaxi's expression improved a little. She stared at Xiao Daoan and said, "Are you and your daughter going to apologize to me on behalf of Jing Yunjiao now?" She really didn't expect that Xiao Haiqing's father was actually such a good-for-nothing. Xiao Haiqing and Jing Yunjiao were usually so close that they were like one person. When they were in school in Huaning County, this Xiao Haiqing and Jing Yunjiao were always at odds with her. It was just that she didn't take Xiao Haiqing to heart. But she didn't expect that Xiao Haiqing's father would actually pop out to apologize now. How ironic. Miss He, Jing Yunjiao is my daughter's classmate. I know him better. He's not a bad person. You two are the same age, so I think you can get along well. Who knows, you can even be friends. Xiao Daoan said again. He didn't know that He Jiaxi had gone to school in Huaning County before. But to Jing Yunjiao, he was considered polite. He didn't belittle him blindly, nor did he put him in Pak Yuan's camp. Instead, he spoke as if he was a junior. He did this because he was afraid that Pak Yuan would think that he wasn't giving him face. He really put in a lot of effort. Be friends with her? Looking at you, only your daughter can get along with her. Birds of a feather flock together. No wonder you two are so close that it's like you're wearing the same pants, He Jiaxi said sarcastically. Xiao Daoan's eyelids twitched. At this moment, Xiao Daoan's father, Xiao Daoan said, Xiao Daoan's father's is. He SSS, and said, his. As soon as these words were said, everyone was stunned. Xiao was. Was there a need to make it so serious? There were so many people here today. If He Jiaxi was chased out, it would definitely make the headlines of Tianning City tomorrow. By then, not only would the He family be humiliated, but Yu Ling Wines would also be pushed to the heart of the storm. It would definitely become famous. Why was CEO by acting so recklessly when both sides couldn't get any benefits? Could it be that this Jing Yunjiao was so important? More valuable than 1 billion yuan? Mr. Xiao, seeing that your daughter is our Yu Ling Wines VIP, I'll give her face and not chase you out. But I hope you won't meddle in other people's business, Pak Yuan said directly. He had never seen such a stupid person. He went around trying to curry favor with others, but he didn't know that the person he should curry favor with the most was his own daughter. Jing Yunjiao's connections couldn't even be compared to the Tang family. Jing Yunjiao had no parents and only a few friends by his side. He valued them more than himself, especially with Xiao Haiqing, who had the best relationship. If Xiao Daoan had some awareness, perhaps the Xiao family wouldn't be like this. Chapter 559. Previously, when the Hong family collapsed, logically speaking, Xiao Daoan wouldn't be in a good situation. However, the reason why the company didn't go bankrupt wasn't because he was lucky, but because no one wanted to torment him. If Jing Yunjiao had hinted at it, a small company like the Xiao family would have been destroyed long ago. Xiao Daoan couldn't react in time. What did he mean by giving face to his daughter? While he was stunned, the security guards had already surrounded James and he Jiasi and made a please gesture. They looked polite, but if the two of them resisted, they could only drag them out by force. CEO Bai, you actually want to chase me out? You really don't have any business sense. James was speechless and said angrily. He Jiasi felt even more uncomfortable. She gritted her teeth and said, Jing Yunjiao, you're really capable. You actually made CEO Bai be so loyal to you. However, all of you have to consider carefully. CEO Bai didn't even want 1 billion for a woman. Who knows, one day, he might even throw away his company for her. What was so good about Jing Yunjiao? Tang Zihua was on her side and didn't even care about their friendship as childhood sweethearts. Now, Pak Yuan, this old man, was also on her side. As he Jiasi said that, the others also couldn't understand Pak Yuan. Pak Yuan was an extremely smart person. Anyone who had dealt with him before knew that he wasn't someone who would easily be taken advantage of and was very rational. No matter what decision he made, he would think twice before he acted. However, this time, he seemed to have gone overboard. Jing Yunjiao raised his hand and stopped them. He walked over. In your eyes, is the only reason for other people's respect only because of improper transactions? Jing Yunjiao said coldly and glanced at her and James. I'm CEO Bai's neighbor's sister, but at the same time, I'm also his business partner. It's natural for him to be on my side. But what about you? James is your godfather, right? I saw that you were looking at him with an ambiguous gaze from the beginning to the end. Is your relationship as simple as that of a godfather? He Jiasi's expression changed. What business partner? Jing Yunjiao, who are you lying to? You're an orphan. Her relationship with James was not as simple as it seemed. When she was abroad, she had accompanied her father to James's party. That was when she met James. Although he was old enough to be her father, he was very humorous and loved her very much. Because she had lost the qualification to be the Tang family's granddaughter-in-law, her father did not give her much pocket money. However, James was different. He was never stingy with money. As long as she asked for something, he would never refuse. However, she still had to go to school outside. In order to prevent others from thinking too much, she told others that James was her godfather. He Jiasi, you really know how to judge others by your own standards. Everyone knows that Jade Spirit Wine's recipe is unique, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who want to know the source and composition of the recipe. Anyway, the reason why Bai Jiasi didn't say anything was to protect me, because I was the one who provided those things, Jing Yunjiao said directly. He Jiasi's complexion turned pale. Impossible. You don't even have parents, so where did you get the recipe? Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and smiled. Because I'm a doctor. As he spoke, most of the people around him were stunned. There weren't many doctors who knew how to brew wine, but the difference was that Jade Spirit Wines also produced medicinal wine. You've been targeting me since you met me. Isn't it because of Tang Zihua? I don't mind telling you that you're the only one who thinks too much. I'm Tang Zihua's doctor, so he'll naturally listen to me. Why don't you ask him yourself? Jing Yunjiao said. Chapter 560. He Jiasi clenched her teeth and shook her head. She seemed to have heard Tang Zihua mention that Jing Yunjiao was the doctor her father found to treat his illness, but how could she believe it? Now, Jing Yunjiao actually said it in front of so many people. Does he think I'm stupid and easy to deceive? Or does he think that everyone here is an idiot who would believe whatever she says? Just as he Jiasi was about to refute, someone laughed and said, Miss Jing's medical skills are absolutely unparalleled. If it weren't for her, my son would have died long ago. But Miss Jing, if I knew that the wine recipe was opened by you, I would have bought more and stored it at home. But it's not too late now. From today onwards, our family will only use Yu Ling Wine's products to entertain guests. He Jiasi turned her head and looked. The person who spoke was somewhat familiar. Thinking about it, her brain felt like it was struck by lightning. She was shocked. She had accompanied her father to many banquets, so she heard her father mention that this person should be the chairman of Zhaoxian Group. His business was spread all over the city, and his words carried a lot of weight. Could it be true? Chairman Zhong, I've long guessed that Miss Jing and Yu Ling wine have a close relationship. I even specially opened the wine cellar for Yu Ling wine. It's full of good wine. I'll keep it as a collection and wait for it to appreciate in the future. A person next to him laughed. He Jiaxi looked again, and her heart suddenly trembled again. He's also a shareholder of a big company. What's going on? Why do they seem to be very polite to Jing Yunjiao? Not only did he Jiaxi not understand the situation, but the others were also completely confused. When the Jade Spirit wines first entered the market, it brought about a very good response. There were even experts who said that this wine recipe was definitely the essence left behind by their ancestors. It was a pity that it was only released now, but the prospects were definitely good. In short, after the Jade Spirit wine was released, it occupied the hearts of many consumers in a short period of time, and even had a group of very loyal people as a base. The various sales channels were often in short supply, and there were many people outside who had ideas about this wine, which had long since made people extremely jealous. But no one would have thought that this kind of wine recipe actually came from Jing Yunjiao's hands. A 16 or 17-year-old child. He's actually a doctor. A doctor who was even praised by so many big shots. If they said she was real, it was hard to believe at her age. But if they said she was fake, could it be that those people who supported her were all crazy? CEO Bai. What Jing Yunjiao said can't be true, right? Xiao Daoan asked. Pak Yuan coughed dryly, his eyes filled with pride. That's right, these wine recipes were all provided by Yunjiao. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she's the breadwinner of Yu Ling Wine's employees. He Jiaxi was simply jealous to the extreme. What are you talking about? Even if the wine recipe was hers, she should have sold it to Yu Ling Wines by now. He Jiaxi said angrily. Jing Yunjiao, what was she? He could actually come up with such a wine recipe? She refused to accept this. Yunjiao is the benefactor of Yu Ling Wines. I, Pak Yuan, will definitely not burn the bridge after crossing the river, Pak Yuan said again, taking the opportunity to rectify Yu Ling Wine's reputation. He didn't want others to think that he really didn't want money for lust. Otherwise, who would dare to cooperate with him in the future? But it was different now. Others might even think that he was a person who valued friendship and righteousness. But when would these days come to an end? He only hoped that Jing Yunjiao would become an adult soon so that he could stand in a proper position and shut the mouths of these blind things. Chapter 561. Pak Yuan's words made He Jiaxi's heart tremble. She only felt that she had completely lost her face and was suddenly at a loss of what to do. Today, she came uninvited. She found out that Jing Yunjiao had a relationship with Pak Yuan, so she wanted to seize the opportunity to steal Jing Yunjiao's backing. When she saw Jing Yunjiao at this banquet, her heart was filled with pride and confidence. She felt that this time, she would definitely make Jing Yunjiao lose face. But now, the one who lost face was her. Pak Yuan actually ignored James. She had never seen such a stupid person who actually refused such a large sum of money. Jing Yunjiao raised his eyes and smiled. His eyes were cold but arrogant. He swept a glance at He Jiaxi and said, "Now, can Missy get out?" He Jiaxi choked. Jing Yunjiao, you're really something. Just you wait. He Jiaxi angrily snorted. In the next second, she walked out of the hotel with James. In such a big business banquet, there were still some reporters. Therefore, He Jiaxi's appearance when she was asked to leave by the security guard was undoubtedly photographed. There weren't many reporters, but there were also a lot of people present. Among them, there were many girls of the same age as He Jiaxi. For example, at this moment, there was a girl standing near Jing Yunjiao. Just a moment ago, she was still showing off her Y country's exclusive custom-made shoes to Jing Yunjiao. At this moment, she looked as if she had lost her parents. She was angry and embarrassed. After glaring at Jing Yunjiao, she awkwardly changed her position with a wine glass. The reason why this girl originally came over was because she saw Suchu eating non-stop and looking like she had never seen the world. Therefore, she specially came over to show off. Who knew that this group of people actually knew He Jiaxi and made such an ugly scene? If she continued to stay here, it was inevitable that she would accidentally get hurt. Besides, this Jing Yunjiao had a good relationship with President Bai. How could she dare to provoke him? Now that He Jiaxi had left, Jing Yunjiao's surroundings became much quieter. Lifting her feet, she walked back. Bai Yuan smiled as he handed her a cup of wine, and she politely thanked the two people who had just spoken up for her. Xiao Daoan had been standing at the side the whole time, watching with his mouth agape. Jing Yunjiao looked immature, but when she spoke, she knew when to advance and retreat. Chatting with these old figures in the business world, she didn't even have the slightest bit of stage fright. If it was him, he would probably also be nervous. She looked at her daughter again and met her mocking gaze. "Hai Qing. Is this recipe really from Jing Yunjiao?" Xiao Daoan couldn't help but ask. Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes. She picked up a glass of wine and drank it all. "What does that have to do with you?" "Haiqing, I'm your father. Don't always side with outsiders. If you don't tell me anything, I wouldn't have lost so much face just now," Xiao Daoan said again. This Jing Yunjiao always caught him off guard. Previously, it was with the Hong family, and this time, it was also the same. He originally wanted to pave the way for others, but who knew that he would be the one to fall? Look at how unpleasant President Bai's words were just now. Give face to his daughter. Wasn't his daughter's face also his face? Xiao Daoan felt sullen in his heart. That company of his had been established for quite a number of years, but it had slowly developed from Hua Ning County. Now that he had finally made a name for himself in Ning City, he had put in a lot of effort and thought along the way, but this Jade Spirit Wine Company had merely used a little more than a year's time to surpass him. It had even far surpassed him, and he could not touch it. Xiao Haiqing smiled. "Father, don't expect me to help you. Just pray that I won't harm you." If this wasn't her father, or if the person in front of her was still the competent father her mother had been when she was alive, how good would that be? Chapter 562. Xiao Haiqing squinted her eyes and smiled, her body emitting a strong smell of alcohol. Xiao Daoan looked at his daughter. That kind of disappointment had already become a habit. He stared at her for a while before saying, "You're such a stubborn child. You've done so many wrong things, but haven't I still raised you and helped you? You, on the other hand, want your whole family to starve to death, don't you?" "Get lost," Xiao Haiqing suddenly said. Her voice wasn't loud, and there wasn't any fluctuation in it. Xiao Daoan could withstand the insults of anyone outside, but in front of Xiao Haiqing, he had to gain enough face. Therefore, when his daughter told him to get lost, he subconsciously wanted to get angry, but when he thought of what CEO Bai said just now, he suppressed the anger in his heart and could only abandon his daughter and leave. However, Xiao Daoan didn't leave the hotel. The banquet wasn't over yet, so of course he couldn't give up just like that. After Jing Yunjiao finished exchanging pleasantries with a few people, he took the wine glass from Xiao Haiqing's hand and asked with a frown, "Haiqing, how many glasses have you drunk?" "Not much." Xiao Haiqing smiled, but her eyes were a little blurred. She simply picked up a bottle and gulped it down. Although she had been upset over her father's matter all these years, she had always been very self-disciplined. She did know a lot of hooligans, but ever since her grandfather died, she didn't fool around with others. On the surface, she acted rebellious, but in the past, it was just to attract her father's attention. She had never really indulged herself. But sometimes, she really hoped that she could numb herself. In front of her friends, she flaunted her strength and wanted to save face. She didn't want to talk too much about these private matters. She could even show an attitude of wanting to cut ties with her family, but how could it be that easy? Seeing her father, whom she was once proud of, lowering his head like a clown to please others and seeing him treat her, a daughter, as a commodity, that feeling was really sad and miserable. Jing Yunjiao sighed faintly. Su Chu and Gan Jinchen looked at each other and glanced at Xiao Haiqing, feeling that it was a pity. No wonder Xiao Haiqing's personality was so independent. It turned out that there was another layer of reason. Yunjiao. Sometimes, when I see how he completely forgets my mother, I really want to kill him. Xiao Haiqing leaned her head on Jing Yunjiao's shoulder and continued, "When I was young, My mom told me that my dad was a very hardworking but very capable man. At that time, he was still working for someone else, leaving early and coming home late every day, but my mom never blamed him. She would prepare everything for him and let him have no worries. He said that he wanted to start his own business, and my mom supported him regardless of the cost. At that time, our family was in a huge debt. My grandparents' coffins were all sent to him to squander. He slept outside, and there would often be people coming to collect the debt. My mom was so scared that her face turned pale, but she never cried in front of me and never told him. Her heart wasn't good to begin with, so she didn't make it in the end. At that time, I still felt that my father was still working hard. I thought that he would feel worse than me, but I didn't expect that in less than 3 years, a newbie would enter the family, and even get married with a child. Men who only think about their careers are really not good people. They say it's for the family, but it's all an excuse. They're just doing it for themselves, Xiao Haiqing said faintly as she drank. She finished the bottle of wine in a short while. In addition to the previous few glasses, she was completely drunk. Jing Yunjiao and Suchu said a few words and helped her up to her room to rest. At this time, a waiter walked towards Xiao Daoan and gave him a note, saying, "Sir, a girl wants you to call her back. She said that she has something important to talk to you about." Chapter 563. Xiao Daoan opened the note with a look of surprise. When he saw the number on it, he thought for a moment and dialed it. He had no status at all in this banquet. He didn't know how many name cards he had handed out, but no one was willing to pay attention to him. There were even people who turned around and threw his name cards into the trash can. It was a blow to his self-esteem. On the other end of the phone, a female voice sounded. When Xiao Daoan heard it, he was pleasantly surprised and a little flustered. He didn't seem to fit in with the lively crowd. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao arranged for Xiao Haiqing to stay in a room. Xiao Haiqing was very drunk, and the smell of alcohol on her was very strong. She couldn't even speak clearly. "Yunjiao, why do you have two?" Xiao Haiqing pointed at her shakily and tried to stand up straight. "Oh, I know. Someone is pretending to be you." As soon as she finished speaking, she pushed Jing Yunjiao away. "Monster, go away. I want Yunjiao." With that, she fell onto the bed. Jing Yunjiao blushed with shame. Xiao Haiqing was still mumbling something. It looked very funny, and Jing Yunjiao was dumbfounded. She couldn't believe that a person could be so different before and after being drunk. After settling her down, Jing Yunjiao went downstairs. Suchu and Gan Jinchen were both there. After all, she was half the host, so she couldn't just abandon them. The banquet was still very lively. Because she had mentioned the wine recipe, more people approached her than before. "Miss Jing, I heard from Director Zhong that you're a doctor. I wonder if you can let me have a look." Just as he sent one away, another person came forward. This person was about 40 years old. He had a prominent belly, a short and fat figure, and was a little bald. There were many people who looked like him, but the one who suddenly appeared in front of her looked a little wretched. As he spoke, he sat beside Jing Yunjiao and sized her up. His eyes shone with a lewd light, and his face was full of expectation. Jing Yunjiao turned to look at the man. "Sir, I'm afraid you can't afford my consultation fee." Although there were people who were willing to be her backer, others might not treat her as someone important. She was afraid that although they looked respectful on the surface, they would think that she was just a gold digger who used the name of a doctor to hunt for men. After all, at her age, no one would believe that she was a godly doctor. Those who believed in her were only people who had experienced it firsthand. Outsiders would never be able to understand. When Jing Yunjiao said that, the man snorted in his heart, but on the surface, he was smiling like a flower. He stared at her and said, "Miss Jing, you must be joking. Although I can't compare to someone like Director Zhong, I can still be considered a little famous. Let's put it this way, I also have a pretty good advertising company under my name. Oh right, my brother is the CEO of a listed gaming company. Miss Jing is so beautiful, how about I introduce you to be the spokesperson for the game?" As the man spoke, he began to become a little arrogant. His body was getting closer and closer. Advertising company? Jing Yunjiao smiled. Sir, don't tell me you want to take the order of Yu Ling wine. The other party was stunned, and his face showed a little embarrassment. Didn't I hear that Yu Ling is going to launch a new product? Our company still has some strength. It's one of the top 3 advertising companies in Ning City. It's a big company, so if you leave it to us, Director Bai can rest assured. Since you're so confident, why are you looking for me? Chapter 564. The man's lips curled into a dry smile. Why was he looking for Jing Yunjiao? Of course, there was a reason. On the one hand, President Bai liked Jing Yunjiao very much. If she agreed, the advertisement plan might really be successful. On the other hand, Jing Yunjiao was quite good-looking. It was a man's instinct to get close to beautiful women. Isn't it because Miss Jing's looks are outstanding? It would be a pity if such a talent doesn't enter the entertainment industry in the future. Although it's just a game endorsement now, it's still a start. My big brother has a wide network. In the future, he might introduce you to some big directors. By then, you will definitely have limitless prospects in the entertainment industry. With your potential, I guarantee that many fans will follow you. Everyone will be envious, the man said again. He didn't believe that such a young girl could resist the temptation of fame. The man's face was full of confidence. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. So that's the case. Jing Yunjiao mocked and said, but it's a pity that I'm not interested in the entertainment industry. Besides, can you represent your big brother? I've seen many people like you who talk about the abilities of their relatives and friends. In fact, it's just nonsense. Also, can you stay away from me? Your eyeballs are about to fall out. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, Su Chu laughed and said directly, aren't you just trying to bribe Yunjiao to get him to help? Just say it directly. Why are you pretending to be a wolf? He kept calling him big brother. Was he a fox pretending to be a tiger? When Su Chu said that, the man's face stiffened. Miss Jing, I'm very sincere. As he said that, he thought of something. He paused and quickly took out a small brocade box from his pocket. I'm different from those people. Miss Jing, don't misunderstand. I already knew that Miss Jing was beautiful, so I specially chose a bracelet as a gift. I hope you like it. As he said that, he opened the box. Inside the box was a diamond bracelet worth about tens of thousands of yuan. The bracelet was beautiful, but Jing Yunjiao didn't believe that it was a gift from him. She glanced around and saw a woman glaring angrily in her direction. Her gaze was fixed on the brocade box in the man's hand, and the wineglass in her hand was about to be crushed. This man's gift was probably for his little lover, right? It was just that he had taken it out at the last minute to keep up appearances. Not to mention that she was not interested in other people's leftover gifts. Even if the present in front of her was a priceless treasure, it would not change her mind about such a wretched man. Jing Yunjiao remained motionless. The man's hand stiffened. Miss Jing. Your woman is staring at me, sir. Do you take me for a fool? Jing Yunjiao sneered. Also, I believe that President Bai won't give such a thing as publicity to someone like you who looks unreliable, especially someone like you who doesn't take the right path. You even want to establish a relationship with me. So, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Jing Yunjiao was still polite. This person was invited by Pak Yuan. He was a guest, so it was not a big deal to give him some face. Pak Yuan told her that he was considering the publicity. At present, there were 3 companies that he was interested in. They were all famous, but one of them had a high price and a good team. One of them was more stable and moderate. The last one had a low price and a wide network, but it seemed that its strength was not as good as the first 2. The last one should be the company of the man in front of her, right? Chapter 565. As soon as Jing Yunjiao rejected him, the man's expression turned ugly. Does Miss Jing think that my price is too low? The man put away the things in his hands and thought for a moment before saying, I didn't expect such an elegant and refined person like Miss Jing to have such a big appetite. How about this? If President Bai is willing to give the contract to our company, I'm willing to pay Miss Jing another commission. I guarantee that Miss Jing will be satisfied. How about that? His words were a little too direct. Suchu and Gan Jinshan's expressions changed, but they didn't know Jing Yunjiao's true identity, so it wasn't easy for them to say some things. Jing Yunjiao didn't get angry. Instead, she laughed. She wasn't stupid enough to cheat her own company. Judging from the way this man handled things, his company probably wasn't that good either. If he really got the contract, he probably wouldn't be able to come up with a plan that satisfied her. It would be troublesome then. Sir, I can tell you very clearly that you are now completely unqualified to compete with the other two companies, Jing Yunjiao said. Miss Jing, what do you mean? The man was stunned. Isn't the meaning clear enough? You've lost the right to compete. Our Yuling Wine Company's publicity will definitely not be handed over to your company. Not now, not ever. As for your gift, I think you should return it to your little lover. Don't disgust me, Jing Yunjiao said as she got up to leave. The other party immediately reached out to stop her. Stop. Miss Jing, don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because you have someone backing you. If I tell President Bai that you seduced me, even if he doesn't believe it, he'll feel uncomfortable in his heart, right? The man quickly said. She was just a stinky woman who flirted with all kinds of men. She had long been played by others. Why was she acting innocent in front of him now? He had already given her benefits, but she was still not satisfied. Her appetite was too big. Jing Yunjiao was so angry that she laughed. Just as she was about to speak, she saw the man reach out to take her over. Suddenly, her eyes were stunned. She lifted her foot and kicked his lower body directly. Even though Jing Yunjiao's shoes weren't very high, they were still very sharp. Adding on to the fact that her strength wasn't small, her aim was extremely accurate. This kick directly made the man hold onto his lower body and howl in pain. It had only stopped for a short while, but it had actually attracted quite a bit of commotion. You little bitch. Ah! The man was about to jump up. His splayed legs looked particularly funny. Suchu blushed and felt a little embarrassed. Jing Yunjiao rubbed his shoes. My hands and feet are unruly. I deserve it. With just a few simple words, the way everyone looked at this man changed. Jing Yunjiao's appearance was outstanding. In just a short period of time, there were already quite a number of people who went up to hit on her. However, most of them had bad intentions but didn't have the guts to do so. They also wanted to make friends with her. None of them were so lustful to the point of getting physical with her. It was just that they didn't expect there to be someone bold. Pak Yuan's face was very cold. Did President Chen Jr. touch you? I didn't touch him. If I did, I wouldn't have been so gentle, Jing Yunjiao said directly. As soon as this was said, many men took a deep breath. They only felt an inexplicable chill on their bodies. Especially when they saw President Chen Jr. sweating, their lower body went soft. Moreover, Jing Yunjiao actually said that she was too gentle. That was the lifeblood of a man. If something happened to him, he wouldn't be able to enjoy the luck of a woman for the rest of his life. Chapter 566. Although he didn't touch her, this CEO Chen Jr. did make a move. Bai Yuan frowned and coldly swept a glance at CEO Chen. CEO Chen, this is my Yuling Wine Company's anniversary party. It's not some improper place. If you can't control your sperm, then please leave. The women here aren't people you have the qualifications to touch. Mr. Chen's face turned pale. Mr. Bai, this is all a misunderstanding. He gritted his teeth and his posture was a little awkward. There's no misunderstanding. There were many people who came to talk to Yunjiao. Why did she target you? If you didn't do anything, I won't believe it. Pak Yuan said angrily. This was his big boss. It was rare for her to attend a party. He wanted to take this opportunity to let her know more people in the business world and let her adapt to the social circle. When she took over the company in the future, she wouldn't be flustered. Who knew that there would be so many blind people looking for trouble? Mr. Chen's heart was blocked. He came to curry favor with Jing Yunjiao, but he didn't expect to suffer a double loss in the end. Wasn't she just a little girl? She had an arrogant attitude and didn't even accept his good intentions. The Yuling Wine Company had to choose one of the three companies. It wasn't difficult for her to say a few good words to CEO Bai, and CEO Bai wouldn't blame her at all. She wouldn't lose anything and would even benefit from it. She actually didn't want to do such a thing. That was fine, but she actually hit him. Mr. Chen's face turned pale. The pain was still unbearable. At this moment, it was hard for him to say anything. Director Chen could only say, "Director Bai, calm down. I think I should leave first." Then, he walked out with strange steps. Jing Yunjiao glanced at them and said, "There should be quite a few people here who want to work with Yuling Wines. Everyone here is a businessman and benefits come first. However, there are some people who want to take a shortcut, thinking that I can influence CEO Bai's thoughts. Towards these kinds of people, I'm afraid CEO Bai will never work with them in the future." As soon as he said that, many people understood in their hearts. On one hand, Boss Chen Jr.'s hands were dirty. More importantly, he wanted to attack Pak Yuan from Jing Yunjiao. She just didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to be such a tough nut to crack. No wonder CEO Bai trusted her so much. There were plenty of people who were letting their imaginations run wild, but after Jing Yunjiao's words, they all became more vigilant. Everyone has seen the results of our Yuling wines in the past year. The reason why we can go further than other companies in the same period is not only because of luck, but also because of our responsible attitude. So, if you have any ideas, you can talk to me. However, if you disturb someone you shouldn't, then I'm sorry. Just like Mr. Chen Jr., I won't accompany you, Pak Yuan said. Most of the people around had the intention of chatting with Jing Yunjiao, so they purposely stood nearby. When they heard Jing Yunjiao's words, their expressions changed, extinguishing any thoughts they had. Jing Yunjiao was also tired after being tossed back and forth. He told Pak Yuan that he was going to rest in his room. It was obviously much quieter upstairs, which made people relax. But when he passed by Xiao Haiqing's room, he saw a housekeeper cleaning. He was surprised and walked in. The bed was empty. "Where is the person in this room?" Jing Yunjiao said coldly. "Are you talking about Miss Xiao? It seems that her father just took her away. In fact, I'm not very sure. You can ask the front desk." The housekeeper replied carefully. Although she was facing a little girl, she still felt very nervous. Chapter 567. In an instant, Jing Yunjiao looked like he wanted to kill someone. His expression was frighteningly cold. He immediately called the waiter over and asked about the situation. "I seem to have said that no one is allowed to enter this room except for me, right?" At this time, Jing Yunjiao had already asked Gan Jinchen to call Xiao Haiqing while Suchu contacted Xiao Daoan. Jing Yunjiao looked coldly at the frightened waiter. She had arranged this room. When she went downstairs, she told the waiter not to let anyone disturb Xiao Haiqing's rest. She didn't expect that not long after her instructions, Xiao Haiqing would be taken away. The waiter looked nervously at Jing Yunjiao and pouted. That person is Miss Xiao's biological father. I have no reason to stop him." Jing Yunjiao stood in front of the waiter and stared at her fiercely. "No reason? This room was booked with my ID, right? Is it appropriate for you to bring someone in without my permission?" The waiter was shocked by Jing Yunjiao. No, nothing will happen. That person is her father," the waiter said again. Her hand instinctively covered her pocket. Jing Yunjiao's eyes were like torches. He glanced over and his expression became colder. "You received a tip from him?" "No," the waiter quickly said. "Call your manager over." Jing Yunjiao's attitude was firm. He looked at the girl in front of him with disgust. "You will soon know that some small advantages shouldn't be taken by you. Otherwise, you will lose a lot." "Chu, Jin Chen, did you get through?" Jing Yunjiao restrained himself and turned to ask. The two of them frowned and shook their heads. Gan Jinchen also looked worried. "Yunjiao, Uncle Xiao, he won't do anything, right? After all, she was his biological daughter." It was possible that he was worried because Haiqing was drunk. Jing Yunjiao also hoped that she was thinking too badly of him. After all, although Xiao Daoan didn't get along with Xiao Haiqing's father and daughter in the past, he was still very protective of Xiao Haiqing. It was just that she kept feeling that things weren't that simple. Sometimes, Xiao Daoan could be considered a gentleman, but that was only when it didn't involve his own interests. He had always been indifferent to Xiao Haiqing. Aside from roaring angrily and scolding her, he had never taken the initiative to show concern for her, especially after that kind of conflict had occurred today. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Xiao Daoan to be so kind as to send her home to recuperate. What do we do now? Gan Jinchen asked. Now that they didn't know if Xiao Daoan had returned home, it wasn't good for them to chase after him. There were so many cars on the street outside, who knew which road Xiao Daoan took? What direction did they go? Jing Yunjiao clenched his fists helplessly. Not long after, the manager hurried over. When he saw that the one causing trouble was Jing Yunjiao, he immediately became listless. Just now, when they were in the lobby downstairs, even though the commotion Jing Yunjiao made wasn't that big, as the manager, he had been waiting in the lobby the whole time. Thus, even if it was just a little bit of friction, he would still be able to hear it clearly. Miss Jing, what happened? The manager's attitude was ingratiating. Seeing the manager's attitude, the waiter also became a little nervous. He hurriedly said, "Manager, the girl who stayed in this room just now was taken away by her father. Miss Jing insisted that I accepted that person's money." Jing Yunjiao couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the waiter. He said directly, "I reminded her that no one else was allowed to enter this room except for me, but in the end, she took the room card and opened the door to let someone take my friend away. Is this how your hotel does things?" Chapter 568. The manager's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly said, "Miss Jing, I'm really sorry. This is our negligence." As soon as the manager spoke, the waitress's face turned pale. She looked nervous and stunned, as if she didn't know what to do. "It has already happened, and it's impossible to undo it. But I don't want to see this waitress in your hotel anymore," Jing Yunjiao said directly. She didn't have the intention to cause trouble. Even if she did, she would just ask the hotel to compensate her or waive the room fee. This amount of money was nothing to her, and she didn't need to waste her breath on this amount of money. However, this waiter couldn't stay. There was no reason for him to get away with his wrongdoings. The waitress's eyes widened when she heard that. "Manager, I didn't do anything wrong. That person is indeed Miss Xiao's father. Shouldn't a father take his daughter away? It's natural for me to open the door for him," the waitress hurriedly said. She did take the money. It wasn't much, just 500 yuan. When Mr. Xiao came to inquire, she didn't allow anyone to enter according to Miss Jing's request, but he said that he was Miss Xiao's father. He also said that Miss Xiao was drunk and he was worried about her staying in the hotel. So she hesitated and felt that it shouldn't be a problem. After all, they were father and daughter, and Mr. Xiao wasn't a bad person. Besides, he was a guest at the banquet. The customer was God, and she didn't do anything wrong. The manager was also a little embarrassed. "Miss Jing, since Miss Xiao was taken away by her father, it seems that the manager thinks that your waitress didn't do anything wrong." Jing Yunjiao's expression was a little dangerous. The manager looked and hurriedly said, "Wrong? Of course she did something wrong. Miss Jing, don't worry. We will definitely give you an explanation for this matter." This Jing Yunjiao wasn't a normal customer. She was Director Bai's most precious person. She knew quite a few business tycoons. If they really offended her, then their hotel's business would definitely be affected. If this Miss Jing was someone who held grudges, then the hotel would face a lot of trouble in the future. "Xiao Wang, go to the finance department to get your salary and leave. From today onwards, you are no longer an employee of our hotel," the manager said again. The waitress's face fell when she heard that. Why? She was just following the guests' wishes. Why did they fire her? "Manager, I'm not convinced. If I hadn't allowed Mr. Xiao to take his daughter away just now, he would have definitely made a scene. Maybe he would have said that the hotel deliberately detained his daughter and refused to let her go. Anyway, Miss Xiao had to go home. Wasn't it just right for her father to take her home now? What did I do wrong?" The waiter retorted. Since she was about to be fired, what else could she not say? Jing Yunjiao sneered and walked up to her. He looked down at her and said coldly, "You're not convinced. Ever since I started talking to you, you've been subconsciously protecting your pockets. There's money in there, right? There are also surveillance cameras installed in this hotel. Do I need to check them? Are you really doing this for the sake of your father-daughter relationship or for the tip? You're right. It's reasonable for Mr. Xiao to take his daughter away. However, you disobeyed my orders as a guest. It's not wrong for me to hold you accountable. Firing you is a light punishment," Jing Yunjiao said as he grabbed the man's wrist and took the money from his pocket. In addition to the money, there was also a beauty card from a high-end beauty salon. Chapter 569. Jing Yunjiao looked at the beauty card and the few hundred yuan notes and directly threw the person out. "Do you still need me to investigate the origin of this card? Every card sold by this kind of beauty salon is recorded. Whether or not it has anything to do with Xiao Daoan will be clear when the time comes," Jing Yunjiao said again. The waitress staggered and was thrown out, her whole body falling to the ground. When she saw the membership card, her face was extremely flustered. "Manager, this card was given by Mr. Xiao's wife. Which girl didn't like to be beautiful?" She had never been to such a high-class beauty salon, so she wanted to take a look. It wasn't rare for the guests in this hotel to tip, so she didn't think there was anything wrong at that time. The manager's face was extremely ugly. "Don't embarrass yourself here. Leave the hotel immediately, or I'll get the security to escort you out later." The waitress was shocked. However, this was just a job. Although the treatment was good, there was no need to bow and scrape to others for that little bit of salary. Therefore, when the waitress saw that the manager's attitude was getting worse, she didn't stay any longer. She quickly got up from the ground, took the card and money, and turned to leave without saying anything. However, before she left, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at Jing Yunjiao and grumble, "What's so great about that? Just because you know a few rich people, you can make a scene. You only know how to bully small waitresses like us." Her voice wasn't loud, but Jing Yunjiao heard it clearly. Immediately, a silver needle in Jing Yunjiao's hand was thrown out. The waitress only felt a slight pain from the needle on her back, but she didn't think too much about it. She moved her body and continued to walk forward. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her and didn't care anymore. She had specially made many silver needles to put in her space. They were considered to be relatively useful hidden weapons. As long as the distance wasn't too far, she could guarantee that she would hit the target 100% of the time. Moreover, the silver needles were thin, so even if they were under the eyes of others, they wouldn't be discovered. Just now, he didn't hit the waitress very hard. The silver needles wouldn't harm her life, but she would still be tortured on a daily basis. As soon as the waiter left, the manager kept apologizing. Behind him, Su Chu and Gan Jinchen still couldn't get through to Xiao Daoan and Xiao Haiqing's calls. In his anxiety, Jing Yunjiao directly got someone to drive the three of them to the Xiao family. At this moment, Xiao Haiqing was lying in the car. The one driving in front was Xiao Daoan, and Jiang Rong was sitting beside Xiao Haiqing. She was holding a bottle of wine in her hand and continuously pouring it into Xiao Haiqing. Xiao Daoan looked at his daughter's drowsy appearance from the rearview mirror and felt complicated. Rong, it's about time. Don't let her drink anymore." Jiang Rong looked at Xiao Haiqing with a look of disgust. She then said worriedly, "Hubby, it's not like you don't know Haiqing's temper. If she sobers up, we don't know what she will do. It's better to drink more." Anyway, she was drowsy now. After she handed the wine over, Xiao Haiqing took the initiative to pour it into her mouth. She didn't force her to do so. Xiao Daoan frowned. "That's true. Be careful. Don't let her drink until she vomits." "Don't worry. I think Haiqing's alcohol tolerance is quite good," Jiang Rong said again. After a while, Jiang Rong shook Xiao Haiqing's body and probed, "Haiqing? Haiqing, how are you feeling now?" Xiao Haiqing looked at the person in front of her in a daze. She vaguely saw the face she hated the most. Without saying anything, she opened her mouth and bit Jiang Rong's arm. Chapter 570. Jiang Rong didn't expect Xiao Haiqing to be so fierce when she was drunk. Her arm hurt, and she howled. Xiao Daoan was startled, and the direction of the car also twisted a little. Jiang Rong pulled her hand out of Xiao Haiqing's mouth. "Hubby. Look at Haiqing, she bit me. It's bleeding." Jiang Rong broke out in a cold sweat as if the flesh on her hand had been bitten off. Even the slightest touch of the bite made her feel a heart-wrenching pain. She felt so wronged. Under the strong push, Xiao Haiqing's entire body was smashed against the car window. She rubbed her head in a daze and stuttered, Jiang Rong, you vixen, return my father to me. Haiqing, stop it." Xiao Daoan was a little unhappy. Xiao Haiqing tilted her head and looked at the person in front. "Who are you? You look just like my father. But you're not him. My father is very young. He's very impressive. You look like a bad person." Xiao Haiqing giggled. Xiao Daoan didn't feel good. He felt guilty. From the rearview mirror, he saw his daughter's eyes. They were so bright that they seemed to be able to speak. They hadn't changed much since she was young. Her gaze was proud and a little dazed, like a lost child. She was so fragile that she couldn't withstand a single blow. He hesitated a little. "Hubby, why don't we not send her over? How about this, I'll ask her. Maybe she knows something about the wine recipe," Jiang Rong said. Xiao Daoan was touched. "Okay, don't force her. Let's see how she answers." Jiang Rong nodded. Haiqing, I'm your auntie Jiang. Do you know what Jing Yunzhao's wine recipe is?" Jiang Rong asked. The 3 words Auntie Jiang ignited the explosive in Xiao Haiqing's mind. She glared at her and said, "You old witch. What do you want to do to Yunzhao? I'll kill you." Then, without another word, he rushed towards Jiang Rong as if he had gone mad. Xiao Haiqing grabbed Jiang Rong's hair and tore it. Jiang Rong had already expected this outcome and was mentally prepared for it. She was beaten up pitifully by Xiao Haiqing, but she did not scream anymore. Instead, she covered her head and advised, "Haiqing, don't be like this. We are doing this for your own good. As long as you tell us what the wine recipe is, your father will not bring you to meet that foreigner." However, at this moment, Xiao Haiqing's brain was no longer under her control, and she was still having a lot of fun. When Xiao Daoan saw his daughter being so shrewish, that bit of guilt in his heart instantly disappeared without a trace. He quickly stopped the car and went to the back seat to help free Jiang Rong from Xiao Haiqing's hands and put her in the front passenger seat. Xiao Haiqing's eyes were confused. She looked at her tall father and said, You are really a good-for-nothing. My father is dead. You are not him. Let me get off the car. I want to get off the car." Xiao Daoan was also annoyed. He hated it when others thought he was useless. He, Xiao Daoan, started from scratch. How much contempt had he received? It was not easy for him to get to where he was now. If it was not for this daughter of his who was dragging him down, the Xiao family would not be in such a situation now. They would have brought glory to their ancestors. Seeing Xiao Haiqing struggling to climb out of the car, Xiao Daoan's anger rushed to his head. "Pa!" He slapped her. In an instant, Xiao Haiqing was completely stunned. The anesthesia of the alcohol did not make her feel much pain. She only felt her heart aching. Chapter 571. Xiao Daoan closed the car door and continued driving. Xiao Haiqing curled up in a corner of the backseat and stared at Xiao Daoan silently like a fool. Jiang Rong glanced sideways, and when Xiao Daoan wasn't paying attention, the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. This stepdaughter's temper was too fierce. She had long known what she was thinking and what she would do. Although she was not her biological daughter, she had raised her for more than 10 years. Her temper was also caused by her, so how could she not control it? Xiao Haiqing had a splitting headache and her mind was blank. The car drove for a long time before it finally stopped in front of a villa. "Hubby, are we really going to let Haiqing in?" Jiang Rong made a difficult expression. Xiao Daoan looked at the villa in front of him with a heavy heart. He thought for a while and said, "They said that they won't mistreat her. As long as she helps them get the recipe for Jing Yunzhao's wine, They'll get engaged a year later when she comes of age. Jiang Rong despised him in her heart. Her husband was such a person. He clearly knew that the other party was just saying it, but he still found an excuse for his daughter. Fortunately, she gave birth to a son and not a cheap one like Xiao Haiqing. However, she had to admit that Xiao Haiqing was quite good-looking. If she really listened and got the recipe for Jing Yunjiao's wine, then James probably wouldn't abandon her. Even if they couldn't get married, she would definitely be a woman by his side and her life wouldn't be too bad. Jiang Rong wasn't stupid enough to tell the truth. She waited quietly in the car and watched her husband personally send her daughter into the villa. After Xiao Daoan carried the drunk Xiao Haiqing in, James nodded at him in satisfaction and stuffed the check he had prepared into his hands. "Mr. Xiao, your daughter is really like an angel," James said in his broken language. Xiao Daoan laughed dryly. 5 million was nothing to a big company, but to him, it was a timely reign. James also said that if Haiqing was obedient, he would help him get in touch with some business in the future and ensure that his company wouldn't starve and would even develop better. The He family hadn't received any benefits from James yet. "Mr. James, my daughter isn't feeling well, so she'll be resting here for the time being. I'll pick her up tomorrow morning. Is that okay?" Xiao Daoan said politely. "Of course." James smiled. Xiao Daoan flattered a few times, then glanced at Xiao Haiqing who was sitting on the sofa and walked out with heavy steps. The night outside was getting darker, and a cool breeze was blowing. Xiao Daoan only felt a chill in his heart, and the figure of his previous wife appeared in his mind. His emotions were complicated and flustered. He sighed faintly and returned to the car. He wasn't in a hurry to leave, but stared at the villa and smoked an entire pack of cigarettes. Smoke rose in the car. Jiang Rong didn't urge him, but kept comforting him. "Honey, think about Miss He. She became so popular because of her relationship with James. Our Haiqing is prettier than her. Mr. James will definitely dote on her more. You've found a good family for her. She'll thank you in the future." Her gentle voice kept numbing his nerves. Xiao Daoan's eyes were slightly red, and his hands were trembling. In the end, he went to the back seat and let Jiang Rong drive away. At this time, Jing Yunjiao had already arrived at the door of the Xiao family. When he saw the dark house, he secretly gritted his teeth. "Brother Bai, haven't you found out where James lives?" Jing Yunjiao called and asked. Chapter 572. Jing Yunjiao wasn't sure if Xiao Daoan brought the person to James's place, but she was certain that the person who could make Xiao Daoan do this was definitely someone from the banquet, and someone who had already left. Among them, James and He Jiaxi were the most suspicious. "I've already sent people to check. There's no one in James's houses, and they're not at the He family's house. James's car is currently parked in the parking lot of a shopping mall. There were too many other cars coming out of the parking lot at that time, and the names of the owners of the houses weren't suspicious either," Pak Yuan said. Jing Yunjiao's heart sank to the bottom. The less suspicious it was, the more nervous she was. After Pak Yuan said that, Jing Yunjiao was almost certain that James was behind it. If James was really innocent, then there was no need for him to change cars on the way and hide under the surveillance cameras' noses. The reason he did this was definitely because he was afraid she would find him. Not only that, even Xiao Daoan used the same method to hide his location, but there were so many houses right now, and it was really difficult for her to determine Xiao Haiqing's location in such a short time. Jing Yunjiao was about to go crazy. After a moment of silence, she stared at the driver and said, "Go to the He family's house." James was someone who had just returned from abroad. Even if he had enough money, he definitely didn't have that many connections in the country. She had checked and found that before Xiao Daoan left the hotel, a waiter had passed him a note, and that waiter said the note was from a girl. "Only He Jiaxi." The driver turned around obediently and sped on the road at an extremely fast speed. In less than half an hour, Jing Yunjiao had already rushed into the He family's house. She practically kicked open the He family's high-security door with a single kick. The entire He family's alarm instantly went off non-stop. Immediately, a guard with a dog rushed over. At this time, the driver stopped at a safe place with Su Chu and Gan Jinchen, and reported the matter to Pak Yuan word by word with a serious expression. Su Chu and Gan Jinchen were obviously frightened by Jing Yunjiao, especially Su Chu. She couldn't help but think of the scene where Jing Yunjiao single-handedly rescued her. Although she didn't remember and didn't see it, she could imagine it now. Jing Yunjiao was still wearing a silver suit, which shone brightly under the moonlight. He wore a simple black coat to protect himself from the wind, and his eyes were dark and terrifying. Seeing the dogs charging forward bravely, he sprinkled some powder from his hand. In just an instant, the dogs became listless and stopped barking. It looked extremely strange, scaring the group of guards. He Jiasi. Jing Yunjiao was like a madman. He broke through the courtyard and directly rushed into the He family. As soon as he opened the door, he saw that the He family of 3 looked somewhat serious and nervous. He Jiasi wrinkled her brows and said, "Jing Yunjiao, are you sick? You're trespassing. Where's Hai Qing?" Jing Yunjiao strode over and grabbed He Jiasi's collar as he asked coldly. Her speed was extremely fast, like a black shadow flashing by, giving people an illusion that it was unreal. "What Hai Qing? I don't know." He Jiasi's heart was trembling. Jing Yunjiao clenched his fist. "He Jiasi, it seems like we have to settle old and new grudges." As soon as he finished speaking, He Jiasi was thrown out by Jing Yunjiao and smashed onto the ground. He Jiasi was in pain, and her whole body was a little dizzy. When the He family's parents saw this, they were even more shocked. Mr. He immediately wanted to rush out of the house, but he saw Jing Yunjiao kick the coffee table and block the door. Mrs. He rushed in front of He Jiasi and stared at Jing Yunjiao with hatred. "Jing Yunjiao, if you're angry, take it out on me. If anything happens to my daughter, I'll definitely let you rot in prison and suffer for the rest of your life." Chapter 573. Jing Yunjiao coldly stared at this Mrs. He with an indifferent expression. "Mrs. He, are you afraid that I'll forget you if you don't speak? When He Jiasi was sent abroad, wasn't it this Mrs. He who secretly messed with her? Until now, her name as Jing Yunjiao still left a deep impression on many people. Each and every one of them knew that she was an orphan who was abandoned by her parents and abused by her adoptive parent." Mrs. He shivered. "Jing Yunjiao, what are you trying to do?" Jing Yunjiao's eyes were like torches and her expression was cold. "Don't worry, I'm not stupid enough to let you lose your lives." As she spoke, Jing Yunjiao grabbed Mrs. His wrist and pulled her over. The silver needle in her hand shone with a faint cold light. In the blink of an eye, she pierced several of Mrs. His acupoints. He Jiasi, who was watching from the side, was so frightened that she screamed. Mrs. His body trembled. She could feel the silver needle piercing her body, but the strange thing was that she couldn't struggle. Jing Yunjiao's strength was extremely strong. When the needle pierced her body, the blood in her body seemed to stop flowing, causing her entire body to feel cold from head to toe. "Jing Yunjiao, you lunatic, I'll definitely call the police to arrest you. Just wait to go to jail." He Jiasi opened her mouth and said, "Don't worry, it'll be your turn soon." Jing Yunjiao opened her mouth and said. Her movements were very fast. When she finished, Mrs. He was so nervous that she fell to the ground and trembled all over. She hurriedly lifted her clothes to check where the silver needle pierced her body, but there wasn't even a drop of blood. This kind of unknown fear made her unable to let go. Jing Yunjiao approached He Jiasi, looking like an extremely cold killer. He Jiasi's pupils contracted. "Don't you want to know where Xiao Haiqing is? If you don't stab me, I'll tell you." Even if he told her now, it would be too late, right? He Jiasi's heartbeat quickened. She looked at Jing Yunjiao and stopped. "Speak." "Jing Yunjiao, I only sent a letter to Xiao Daoan, that's all. You should know that I can't go against James's words. If it weren't for you not giving James face in front of everyone and causing him to be chased out of the banquet, he wouldn't have done that. Also, if you really want to blame someone, then blame Xiao Daoan. Xiao Haiqing is his daughter, and he himself decided to give her to James. What can I do?" He Jiosai hurriedly added. At this moment, she had no choice but to say it. If he said it out loud, Jing Yunjiao might go easy on him. She was simply a freak. The He family had more than a dozen dogs, and each of them was incomparably fierce. They had even eaten the breeder's arms, but when faced with Jing Yunjiao, they all stopped. It was simply too strange. The same went for the guards. There were so many of them, but they couldn't catch Jing Yunjiao. In this kind of situation, there was no other way except to tell the truth. He Jiaxi looked at Jing Yunjiao closely, afraid that he would recklessly stab her body in the next second. Although it wouldn't take her life, the slender silver needles made people's hearts tremble. She didn't want to become a person with needle holes all over her body. However, her resistance was useless. Jing Yunjiao pinched her chin and used the same method to stab her body. Medical skills could save people and also harm people. This technique was generally used to dredge the meridians, but it was more harmful to the body. For people with big problems with their meridians, this was a life-saving acupuncture technique, but for ordinary people, it was the opposite. Jing Yunjiao, I've already said it, but no, I never promised you. Jing Yunjiao's face was cold. If you lie to me, I will make you suffer 1,000 times more. Chapter 574. Jing Yunjiao didn't want to waste her time. After the injection, she walked out again, and there was almost no obstruction along the way. The effect of the powder hadn't worn off yet, so the dogs were still in a daze. Even after Jing Yunjiao left, they still didn't make a single sound. There were also some guards who tried to stop Jing Yunjiao, but they were all kicked far away. They didn't even have the strength to resist. Jing Yunjiao followed the address provided by He Jiaxi and rushed to the 100-rich city. The place was a villa district. The price wasn't expensive, but it wasn't cheap either. It wasn't in the city. As for Zhuo Haiyang, Jing Yunjiao had heard of him before, but she didn't care before. This was because Zhuo Haiyang was in the same line as Yu Ling Wine Company. They both sold foreign wines with beautiful packaging, and the color of the wine was very pleasing. It was considered a type of fruit wine, but the juice content wasn't high. Other than that, this Haiyang Food Company already sold dried fruits, beverages, and the like. Their business wasn't very big, but they were quite famous. The reason he provided James with a place to stay was easy to understand. It was completely to compete with Yu Ling Wine Company, right? When Yu Ling Wine Company's products were pushed into the market, it did cause some damage to other industries. After all, the market was only so big. If someone had a good business and a good reputation, then there would be people who had to do business at a loss. If it was other wine companies, she could still understand, but this Zhuo Haiyang, she couldn't forgive him. This Zhuo Haiyang and her Yu Ling Company were almost unrelated. They targeted different consumers, and the other party had many kinds of products. There wasn't much conflict at all. And now, he actually did such a thing for that investment. Jing Yunjiao secretly gritted her teeth. She was extremely worried. It was too slow. Gan Jinchen and Su Chu felt even more sad in their hearts. They originally thought that Xiao Daoan would take into account their father-daughter relationship and look forward to this matter. It was just that they thought too much, but they didn't expect the truth to be even harder to accept than they imagined. They didn't know what Xiao Haiqing was like now. She was very drunk. Thinking of her drunkenness, the three of them hated Xiao Daoan even more. If Xiao Daoan didn't always want to use Xiao Haiqing, she wouldn't have been so angry that she kept drinking to drown her sorrows, and she wouldn't have been taken advantage of. Time ticked by, and the scenery outside the window flashed by. The three of them looked extremely solemn. Soon, the car stopped. Just as he was about to get out of the car, he saw the door of the villa open, and Xiao Haiqing staggered out. The three of them were shocked. Xiao Haiqing's clothes were disheveled, her short hair was messy, and her black dress was a little out of place. Under the dim light of the night, the hickeys on her shoulders and neck could be vaguely seen. It was a frightening sight. She walked barefoot on the protruding rocks, but she didn't feel any pain at all. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he immediately knelt on the ground and vomited. The three of them were at a loss. They had never seen Xiao Haiqing like this before. She was like a broken doll, empty and desperate. The clear bloodstains on her hands were long and frightening. They didn't seem like they were caused by a man. They were afraid that she had scratched herself. She was swaying as if she was still drunk, but also very sober. The tears in her eyes dripped into the hearts of the three people in the night. Jing Yunjiao got out of the car with red eyes. He took off his jacket and walked over to put it on her. Xiao Haiqing froze. Jing Yunjiao could feel her trembling resistance. "Haiqing, it's me," Jing Yunjiao said. The house was very quiet, and no one came out. She wanted to ask and go in to see what was going on. She wanted to stand up for her and take revenge. However, when she saw Xiao Haiqing like this, she couldn't do anything. Chapter 575. When she heard Jing Yunjiao's voice, Xiao Haiqing's tense body instantly relaxed. After vomiting for a while, she stood up weakly and hugged Jing Yunjiao without saying a word. It was unclear if she was sober or drunk. "Yunjiao, take me home." Her voice was ethereal and extremely hoarse. Jing Yunjiao looked at the house, thought for a while, and nodded. He helped her step by step into the car. In the car, Xiao Haiqing did not say a word. She kept rubbing her body with her hands and frowned slightly, as if she felt that she was extremely dirty. Su Chu sat beside her with red eyes and bit her lips. She did not need to think to know what Xiao Haiqing had gone through. Gan Jinchen, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, also had a gloomy expression. Something in his heart was shattered. Xiao Haiqing was very quiet, but her body was trembling slightly. Jing Yunjiao was full of self-blame. If she had not provoked He Jiaxi and James, they would not have shifted their target to Xiao Haiqing. This was not the first time. The people around her had always been hurt because of her. The last time it was Su Chu. This time it was Haiqing. Jing Yunjiao's gaze turned cold. He pursed his lips and did not say a word. She had lived alone in her previous life. In this life, she was only suitable for one person. She did not want to hurt others and herself. "Yunjiao, I had a dream last night." Xiao Haiqing suddenly opened her mouth and said, "Yesterday was my mother's birthday. I went home, but he doesn't remember." He was cleaning the small garden outside the door with Jiang Rong and her son. "It was a happy time. I was unhappy, so I picked the flowers that Jiang Rong had planted. My mother hates that smell." He was very angry and said that I went home just to make things difficult for him. I thought that it was my mother's birthday, so I didn't argue with him and stayed at home that night. I dreamt that he was rich and his business was getting better and better. There were many people around me that I didn't know. He asked Jiang Rong to introduce them to me. I couldn't escape. There were people everywhere. They surrounded me and tried to get close to me. I hated that feeling, but he asked people to watch over me and not let me leave. I dreamt that he told me that the old man loves you. He said that I have a bad temper and should find an old man who can tolerate me. Yunjiao, I was really scared in the dream. I couldn't even use the martial arts you taught me. I could only let myself be bullied by others. I shouted, but it was useless. My head was very heavy, as if I was drugged. I only woke up after a long time. I thought that I was really done for. Luckily, it was just a dream. But it turns out that reality and dreams are so similar. He sold me out just like in the dream. When she woke up this morning, although she was afraid that she had such a dream, she felt a little guilty when she saw her father. Because she thought that no matter how bad he was and how much he valued benefits, he would only beat and scold her. She thought too much of her father, so she had such a dream. It turned out that the dream wasn't just a dream. It was also an omen. The difference was that she didn't have the slightest ability to resist like she did in the dream. Xiao Haiqing's voice was soft, and Jing Yunjiao was in a daze. Ever since her rebirth, she had always been puzzled as to why Xiao Haiqing, who was like a cockroach, would be a famous black widow in the capital. She had married many times and her reputation wasn't good. The reports even said that she was a beautiful woman from a wealthy family who didn't follow the rules and was bold and wanton. However, her expression gave her a sense of tenacity, which didn't match the reports. But now that she saw Xiao Haiqing's expression, she seemed to understand a little. A person wouldn't go to such extremes for no reason. It should be because of the influence of the surrounding environment, right? And the only person who could affect Xiao Haiqing in her previous life should be Xiao Daoan. Chapter 576. In this life, Xiao Daoan was able to give Xiao Haiqing away without hesitation. Then what about the previous life? She had been with Xiao Haiqing for a long time. She clearly knew that she wasn't the kind of person who relied on men. She shouldn't ask for marriage over and over again. Jing Yunjiao's mind was filled with random thoughts. After a few hours, he directly sent her back to the small house Xiao Haiqing usually lived in Huaning County. This was Xiao Haiqing's grandfather and grandmother's old house. It was also her mother's property. It had 3 rooms and 1 living room. It was very old, but it was very warm. There were also some old things in the house. They were stored neatly and very clean. There were photos hanging on the wall. They were all photos of Xiao Haiqing when she was young. In the photos, Xiao Haiqing was smiling very happily. She looked very young and obedient. She didn't look like the her in front of him. He made a hangover soup and let Xiao Haiqing drink it all. This night of danger had actually sobered her up a little. Now, it seemed that she had more or less recovered. Xiao Haiqing. Chu Chu looked at Xiao Haiqing nervously. She didn't know what to say. The marks on her body were a little shocking. After going through something like this, she definitely needed someone to comfort her. However, she felt that comfort was too weak and pale at this time. What was the use? I'm fine. Xiao Haiqing's voice was tired. I scared you guys. Chu Chu, Jin Chen, you two go back first. Yun Zhao will be enough to accompany me tonight. Haiqing, why don't we stay here too? I'll stay in the room next door. Cousin will stay in the living room. If you need anything, you can find him anytime. Su Chu suggested. At this time, the two of them were really worried. Although Xiao Haiqing always had the best relationship with Jing Yunjiao and liked to joke about her, they were friends who had been together for a long time. In her heart, Xiao Haiqing was just as important. Do whatever you want, Xiao Haiqing said. Gan Jinchen let out a sigh of relief. When he saw Xiao Haiqing walk out of the villa, he really wanted to rush in and beat the people inside. However, he knew in his heart that his ability to beat people wasn't even as good as Xiao Haiqing's. Also, Xiao Haiqing cared about her face. It was best if they kept quiet and let her have some peace. The cousins hesitated for a while, then hesitantly went to the living room. After the two of them left, Xiao Haiqing immediately. Jing Yunjiao's heart ached. Haiqing, I'm sorry. I've implicated you. If it wasn't for me, Yunjiao, it has to be. Xiao Haiqing's voice was hoarse as she continued. Really, I know that without you, it would still be the same. And if it wasn't for Jing Yunjiao, she wouldn't even have been able to hide. The dream last night was so realistic that it scared me. It was because his ambition was just as I thought. He was willing to abandon me and my mother for his career. He married Jiang Rong for his career. He was also willing to give me away for his career. As long as I can give him benefits, he is now a homeless dog. When he brought me in, although I was in a daze, I remembered a number, 5 million. Yun Zhao, he did it for 5 million. My, Xiao Haiqing's, innocence is only worth 5 million in his eyes. No, maybe it's not even worth 5 million. Xiao Haiqing's eyes were bloodshot. Her hands clutched the blanket tightly. The bloodstains on her arms were a shocking sight. Haiqing, we can deal with him. We can make him bankrupt and lose everything. We can make him suffer for the rest of his life. Jing Yunjiao said, his heart aching. No. Yunjiao, this is not enough. Chapter 577. Xiao Haiqing's eyes were filled with hatred. I hope that he will live a long life with Jiang Rong. I hope that his company will continue to drag on and be half dead. I want him to be filled with ambition but never be able to get what he wants. I want him to see me become stronger than him step by step and climb over his head step by step. I want him to never be able to touch me. Yun Zhao, he is my father. I don't want him to die. I want him to live, but it is worse than death, Xiao Haiqing said word by word. Yun Zhao, don't help me. You can help me resolve my hatred, but you can't resolve the knot in my heart. She felt as if there was a knot in her heart. It was stuck inside and couldn't be untangled. It was suffocating and uncomfortable. Even if her father had nothing and Jiang Rong was half dead, Her knot would always be there. That kind of torture couldn't be resolved in a short time. Some people were destined to be entangled for 10 or 20 years to vent their hatred. Now that they were dead, it was over. Who could she vent her anger on for the rest of her life? Jing Yunjiao was silent. She had never felt anything like this before. She blamed the Qiao family, but they had never treated her well since she was young. She had no respect or love for them. However, Xiao Haiqing remembered the good times they had as a family. She had received the great fatherly love from Xiao Daoan, but it was taken away again. That kind of hatred born from love was different from hers. Whatever you say, Jing Yunjiao said quietly. Haiqing, how is James? Jing Yunjiao asked again. If he was alive, there were ways to deal with him. If he was dead, she wasn't afraid. Although it was troublesome, she could afford the best lawyer. However, she had to know the situation first. I think I broke his legs. I can't remember. Anyway, he should have fainted. Xiao Haiqing rubbed her head. She couldn't remember the occasional scene. She only knew that her head was very heavy at that time. Her mind was only thinking about the 5 million. She was a little dazed. There was someone on top of her. The smell made her feel disgusted. He wanted to tear off her clothes. Then, she tried to resist, but the other party's actions were much rougher. She used all her strength to kick him away, but she was afraid that she would faint, so she forced herself to pinch her arm. After feeling the pain, she felt much better. Later on, Xiao Haiqing tried hard to recall. She remembered that Jing Yunjiao had taught her the acupuncture points that could temporarily paralyze the body. After the man could no longer move, she seemed to have gone crazy. She found a stick in the room and kept hitting his legs. She couldn't remember how many times she had smashed the door. She was afraid that the man would chase after her when she tried to escape. She recalled the dream she had yesterday and was afraid that the man would be the same as in her dream. No matter how hard she tried, she wouldn't be able to escape. Therefore, she used a lot of strength. Oh right, there seemed to be a camera in the house. She smashed it too. Xiao Haiqing hugged her arms tightly. Yunjiao, you'd better not drink in the future. Jing Yunjiao was stunned. Why? He asked. If you drink, you should be scarier than me, right? Xiao Haiqing said faintly. Alcohol was really a burden. Fortunately, she had a high alcohol tolerance. Although she was drunk, she still had a trace of consciousness. If she was drunk like a dead pig, she would probably despise herself for the rest of her life. Moreover, at the moment when she hit, all her thoughts were in a mess. At that moment, she felt as if she had gone crazy. She only wanted to make that man unable to stand up and catch up with her. She was impulsive and confused, like a beast without a sense of self. Thinking back to that feeling, it was too scary. Chapter 578. Jing Yunjiao heaved a sigh of relief. She was wobbly, but her thoughts were clear. It seemed like she had recovered a lot. Haiqing, rest well. I'll stay here with you tonight, Jing Yunjiao comforted her. The room gave off a warm and old-fashioned atmosphere that made people feel more relaxed. Xiao Haiqing nodded and lay on the bed. Her head felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was very dull. Although she was extremely sleepy, when she closed her eyes, her mind was filled with the scene that had just happened and the dream from last night. It was as if they were connected together, making her unable to fall asleep. Her eyes were tightly shut, but her brows didn't relax for even a moment. Jing Yunjiao sat by the bed and found some medicinal powder to clean her wound. The wound was long and thin, and the claw print was very frightening. There were even remnants of blood under the fingernails on the other hand, looking very frightening. Jing Yunjiao cleaned it up bit by bit, and a trace of sadness flashed across his eyes. Xiao Haiqing's forehead was covered in sweat. Even in her sleep, her fists were tightly clenched. She was probably having a nightmare. Jing Yunjiao took out a few more silver needles and inserted them into her wound to calm her mind and help her sleep. After her breathing stabilized, Jing Yunjiao asked Pak Yuan about the situation in Serene City. Although she broke into the He family's house and Xiao Haiqing seemed to have caused serious injuries to James, the two families didn't call the police. However, it was understandable. Once they called the police would investigate carefully. When the time came, they would naturally find out that he, Jiaxi and James had colluded to make a request to Xiao Daoan. If this spread out, it wouldn't be good for the He families and James's reputation. Moreover, Xiao Haiqing was drunk at the time, and she was ruthless because she resisted. He, Jiaxi and James were very clear about this. However, the He family's mother and daughter, as well as James, were sent to the hospital. The specific situation wasn't clear for now. Jing Yunjiao wasn't in a hurry to ask and stayed in the room for the night. The next day, before dawn, the three of them were woken up by a knock on the door. When they opened the door, they saw Xiao Daoan's travel-worn appearance. He was obviously stunned when he saw the three of them, and a trace of awkwardness flashed across his face. "Where's Haiqing?" Xiao Daoan looked into the room and asked. Xiao Daoan looked a little disheveled. His hair was messy, and his suit was a little wrinkled. He reeked of smoke, and he probably hadn't cleaned his stubble this morning. He looked like a middle-aged man in dire straits. Jing Yunjiao glanced at him and remembered what Xiao Haiqing had said last night. She hoped that this father of hers would live well. In fact, she just wanted to use her own way to take revenge, right? Since that was the case, she would not get involved. However, that did not mean that she would serve Xiao Daoan nicely when she saw him. "May I ask why Mr. Xiao is here?" Jing Yunjiao asked, even though he already knew the answer. His expression was cold and sarcastic. Xiao Daoan frowned. Miss Jing, how is Haiqing now? Why didn't you call her last night to ask how she was doing? Running over here so early in the morning, I think you don't have good intentions." Su Chu immediately said angrily. She had never seen such a shameless father. For the sake of business, he gave his daughter away, yet he still pretended that he cared about her. It was simply trying to pretend to be chaste after being a Mr. Xiao, you know better than anyone what your daughter went through last night. I hope you can scram far away now and not disturb her rest, Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Last night, Xiao Haiqing slept very late and had nightmares for a long time. She had to perform acupuncture on her several times before she could sleep peacefully. Coupled with the effects of alcohol, she would sleep until the sun was high in the sky. Right now, it was only dawn. Chapter 579. Xiao Daoan's expression was ugly. He looked at Jing Yunjiao helplessly and pleadingly. "Miss Jing, you're Haiqing's classmate. You should know what she did last night, right? Mr. James is hospitalized. The bones in his legs are completely shattered. No matter how good medicine is, it won't be able to recover. Haiqing did it." Xiao Daoan was trembling with anger. "I really don't know what sin I committed to give birth to such a daughter. I know I let her down and sent her to the hospital yesterday, but no matter how big the grudge is, she can't do such a thing, right? You didn't see it. Mr. James's legs are a bloody mess. It's so painful." Xiao Daoan's heart trembled. He couldn't believe that his daughter would do such a thing. He received a call from Miss He in the middle of the night and found out that Miss He and Mr. James were hospitalized. He hurried over to take a look. Although Miss He and Mrs. He were shocked, they didn't have any physical problems. Mr. James, on the other hand, was in a terrible state. He would probably have to rely on a wheelchair for the rest of his life and would never be able to stand up again. It didn't matter how Mr. James was, but the problem was that his daughter did it. It was already a great blessing that the other party didn't call the police. If his daughter didn't apologize now, would he still have the rest of his life? Who knew when Mr. James would take revenge on him and ruin his life? "Mr. Xiao, you only know how to blame Haiqing, but this is actually your own fault, right? You sold your own daughter for 5 million. You're really something. I don't care how Mr. James is now, and I don't care about your future. I only know that Haiqing doesn't want to see you. If you don't leave, don't blame me for using violence," Jing Yunjiao said. "She knows." Xiao Daoan was shocked. Haiqing was clearly sleeping soundly on the sofa when he received the $5 million. Jiang Rong saw her husband in a daze and quickly shouted, Haiqing, are you inside? Come out and help us, okay? If you don't help, your father will really. Jing Yunjiao kicked him out. Jiang Rong clutched her stomach and struggled. Xiao Daoan was so scared that his face turned pale. Jing Yunjiao, this has nothing to do with you. I'm disciplining my own daughter, Xiao Daoan hurriedly said. However, before he could finish, Xiao Haiqing appeared behind Jing Yunjiao and stared at her father. Xiao Daoan jumped in fright. His daughter's eyes were bloodshot, her hair was messy, and there were some marks on her body. She looked like a ghost that had crawled out from hell, looking extremely terrifying. Dad, you're here, Xiao Haiqing's hoarse voice traveled over, causing Xiao Daoan to shudder violently. His voice was bone-chilling, causing the hearts of those who heard it to turn cold. It was clearly the same tone as before, but he felt like something had changed. Xiao Daoan's old face tensed up. Haiqing, Dad knows he's wrong, but you don't know that I was forced to do this. Ever since the Hong family fell, your father has been like a rat crossing the street. My business has plummeted, and no one is willing to help me. If this continues, the company will be finished. Haiqing, I know it's useless for me to say anything now, but do you think that as a father, my heart doesn't ache? I didn't sleep last night and stayed outside the house for a long time. I wanted to go in and take you away, but I can't afford to offend the He family and Mr. James. Also, if you and Jing Yunjiao hadn't offended them, I wouldn't have been used by them. Chapter 580. Xiao Daoan talked non-stop. At first, he looked like he sincerely wanted to admit his mistake, but the more he spoke, the more excuses he used. It was as if everything was Xiao Haiqing's own shamelessness. Jing Yunjiao and the other two couldn't bear to listen anymore. They wanted to stop him, but Xiao Haiqing stopped them. She just looked at him and memorized every word. Dad, what do you need me to do now? Xiao Haiqing's voice was calm. Xiao Daoan was suddenly stunned. He thought his daughter would argue with him and question him righteously, but she didn't. She just calmly asked him what he wanted to do. Her expression made him at a loss for what to do. After being stunned for a while, he said awkwardly, Mr. James didn't call the police. I'll take you to meet him now. Hopefully, we can salvage the situation. If you don't go, then, if James blamed him, the He family would put pressure on him. When the business couldn't go on and was about to go bankrupt, he would sell this house. This house was his daughter's lifeline. Everything here was. He knew this very well. However, before he could finish his threat, Xiao Haiqing said, Okay, let's go. Haiqing. Jing Yunjiao looked at her in surprise. Haiqing, why do we have to go? It'd be better if that James died. Su Chu was practically burning with rage. Jing Yunjiao looked at her. Seeing her emotionless eyes, a trace of heartache flashed through his eyes. After calling her that, he didn't say anything to stop her. Whatever she wanted to do, he would let her do it to her heart's content. Xiao Daoan didn't expect his daughter to agree so easily. She even said those words of advice. He heard Xiao Haiqing say again, I want to change my clothes. You guys wait at the door. Ah. Okay. Then hurry up. Xiao Daoan hurriedly said. After saying that, Xiao Haiqing closed the door with a bang, almost hitting Xiao Daoan's nose. Xiao Daoan was furious, but when he thought of his daughter's cooperation, he sighed in relief. Looking at his daughter, last night, James must have, although she was his daughter, he didn't want to think that way. Generally speaking, once a man conquered a woman's body, his heart would be more or less the same. Last night's situation should have happened because Haiqing was drunk. He just didn't know if Mr. James would forgive Haiqing later. What should he do? Xiao Daoan's hair was about to turn white. He knew very well that both of Haiqing's legs would be crippled. James would not be appeased unless Haiqing suffered even more. Xiao Daoan waited outside and smoked another cigarette. Hubby, why is Haiqing suddenly so sensible? Don't tell me he's trying to escape. Jiang Rong said suspiciously. Let's wait and see. If he doesn't come out in a few minutes, I'll go get him, Xiao Daoan said. Jiang Rui too. At this time, Xiao Haiqing took off yesterday's dirty clothes and went into the bathroom to take a simple shower. She changed into a clean red dress. Haiqing, you really want to go? What if they call them to the police? Won't the police arrest you? Su Chu was worried. After all, it was a serious injury. How could the other party let it go so easily? If he went over at this time, wouldn't he be hitting the muzzle of the other party's gun? He had to bear the other party's anger, and it was clearly the other party's fault. This was too sullen. Clearly, if they call the police, he will be charged with attempted rape. Xiao Haiqing changed her clothes and said calmly, "How hard did I hit him last night? I don't even remember it myself. I have to go and deepen my memory." Chapter 581. After Xiao Haiqing finished speaking, Su Chu pursed her lips. She was like a little headless fly that was anxious behind her. She was also a little timid and did not know how to open her mouth. She felt that Xiao Haiqing looked a little scary at this moment. Could it be that she felt that she had been too lenient on her and wanted to fight again? She did not have the same courage as Xiao Haiqing. If it were her, after experiencing such a thing, she would probably hide in the house for 10 days to half a month and not go out to see anyone. She might even lose the courage to continue living. How would she dare to deepen her memory? Moreover, that kind of memory was extremely painful to recall, not to mention seeing the perpetrator with her own eyes. Su Chu looked at Xiao Haiqing anxiously. She felt that compared to her and Jing Yunjiao, she was simply too weak. When something happened, she would only cry and be anxious. She could be scared to death. She would usually say brave words, but it was useless. "Haiqing, don't go, okay? That James is so bad. If you go, your mood will definitely be worse," Su Chu said carefully. Gan Jinchen was a boy, and he did not know how to comfort her when faced with such a situation. However, he agreed with Su Chu. After all, Xiao Haiqing was just a girl. There was no need to pretend to be so strong. Some things should be avoided and let go. Everything could start over. One day, the dark clouds would be lifted and the sun would be revealed. Xiao Haiqing turned her head and looked at Su Chu. She pinched Su Chu's cheek. Among the few of them, Su Chu was probably the most relaxed and carefree one, right? Jing Yunjiao was independent and had to face many things. Tang Zihua was the crown prince of the Tang family. Although he was dressed in golden clothes, he had been ill for more than 10 years. In the past, he was in a half-dead state. Moreover, he had to face all kinds of schemes in the Tang family, so he had been hiding in Huaning County and refused to go back. In contrast, Gan Jinchen was much more relaxed, but after all, he was a boy. Grandpa Gan was strict with him and hoped that he could inherit his mantle in the future. Su Chu, on the other hand, had harmonious relatives and happy parents. The whole person was like wrapped in honey. There were a lot of friends around her. She had good grades and a good reputation. She lived an easy life, which was enviable to the extreme. Therefore, her point of view on things was often different from hers and Jing Yunjiao's. She and Jing Yunjiao were used to living alone. More or less have a kind of ruthlessness, which Su Chu did not have. But I hope she never will. You're hurting me. Su Chu rubbed her face innocently. She didn't dare to say anything now. Haiqing was really scary. Her IQ had always been on a completely different level from her cousins. So, no. What if James bullies you? I know I'm useless, but at least I'm a living person. I should be able to increase your power, right? Su Chu said anxiously. She felt that Xiao Haiqing and Jing Yunjiao were both strange. This morning, Jing Yunjiao didn't look at her as intimately as before. Whether it was her or her cousin, he seemed to be deliberately avoiding her. Their relationship was getting better and better. Suddenly, they became distant. She really couldn't accept it. Jin Chen, you should take Chu Chu back. She didn't come home last night. Grandpa Gan and Uncle Su should be worried. Jing Yunjiao also said. Hearing this, Su Chu stood there in a daze. Chapter 582. Jing Yunjiao's mouth showed a trace of bitterness, and said, Chu Chu, that kind of occasion really doesn't suit you. Su Chu looked at her and Xiao Haiqing with disappointment, and slightly lowered her head without saying a word. Gan Jinchen sighed in his heart. All right, you guys pay attention to your safety. If there's anything, you have to tell us. Jing Yunjiao nodded, opened the door, and walked out with Xiao Haiqing. When he opened the door, he saw Xiao Daoan standing a step away from the door, as if he was hesitating whether to push the door open or not. Xiao Haiqing glanced at him, as if he didn't see him. "Let's go." Xiao Haiqing's voice was slightly raised. Xiao Haiqing's red dress was paired with a short white jacket, covering all the marks on her body. When Xiao Daoan heard this, he hurriedly went to open the car door, looking like a dog's leg. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but sigh. This person's change was really big. When she first saw Xiao Daoan, he still had the pride of an ambitious person. His every move was mature and steady, like a successful person. However, in just a few months, he had transformed from a successful person to a loser with no confidence. His flattery had been cultivated to the point of perfection. Su Chu watched the two get in the car and leave, and curled her lips. "Cousin, am I really useless?" Su Chu muttered. She would only cause trouble. When she encountered those things, she couldn't even help. She didn't have the strength, and she didn't have the ability. "I still think I'm quite useless." It was awkward for the whole night. Gan Jinchen sighed and was speechless. Before, he and Tang Zihua were still targeting young Master Li. Now, it seemed that young Master Li was much stronger than the two of them. At the very least, he would be able to protect the three little girls. Unlike now, he could do nothing but watch from the side. But don't think too much about it. From what I see, Yun Zhao's shock this time is no less than Hai Qing's. He probably feels that he has implicated his friends. Gan Jinchen continued, "You don't know, but the last time you were kidnapped, she looked a little flustered when she saw Grandpa. We've known her for so long, and even when she was cornered by a group of people, she didn't show the slightest bit of fear. But at that time, her eyes were extremely weak, as if she was afraid that Grandpa would blame her and hate her because of you. Was it because they were treating them as family? Was that why they were behaving like this?" Su Chu raised her head. "Then what should we do?" Jing Yunjiao obviously wanted to keep a distance from her. The incident that time was indeed quite dangerous, but I think it was actually quite exciting. Su Chu scratched her head and said, "Cousin, don't tell me you're scared. I really don't think it's a big deal. There will be trouble, but cousin isn't the only one who brings danger to us. Take the previous incident for example. That Zhongqing is our relative. If I didn't drag cousin to the clinic, they wouldn't have run into each other again. Also, the conflict with Zhongjio's brother was also because of me. How can she think that she was the only one who caused it?" Gan Jinchen rolled his eyes. "What's the use of telling me this? Go and explain it to her yourself." He still felt that he was quite innocent. He was a guy. Jing Yunjiao actually thought that he was so timid that he would abandon his friends because of an unknown or even something that might not happen. Was he that unloyal? Chapter 583. Gan Jinchen and Su Chu were disappointed. Seeing that Xiao Haiqing and Jing Yunjiao had left, they didn't stay any longer. They locked the door and went home. However, they couldn't sit still at home. At this time, Jing Yunjiao and Xiao Haiqing were already on the road. Xiao Daoan drove the car. The two of them sat in the back while Jiang Rong sat in the front passenger seat. Jiang Rong wasn't even 30 years old yet. Her skin was still young and delicate. She wore a light green dress today. Her long hair was tied up, and her brows were gentle. She looked virtuous and gentle. She looked at Xiao Haiqing as if she wanted to say something. Just now at the door, Jiang Rong was kicked by Jing Yunjiao. That kick wasn't light, but now Jiang Rong seemed to be fine. She could bear with it. "Haiqing, you have to suffer a little. Your father has been working hard for you all these years. Now that he needs your help, you can't be a burden to him. Everything that happened in the past was my fault. As long as you help your father this time, I promise you that I will do whatever you say. Even if you want all of the Xiao family's assets in the future, Junjun and I will give it to you. We don't want a single cent." Jiang Rong said sincerely. Rong, it's not as serious as you say. No one will snatch Junjun's things from him. I've done so much for this family, and now I'm just asking her to apologize. What's there to be aggrieved about?" Xiao Daoan braced himself and said. The most successful thing in his life was marrying Jiang Rong, and giving birth to Xiao Jun. Jiang Rong was much younger than him and came from a good family. Her family saved him a lot of trouble. That's true, but hubby, I feel that I've let Haiqing down. Yesterday. Jiang Rong's lips trembled. She felt wronged and said, that damned James. Why did he have to bully our Haiqing? There were so many people at the banquet, but he had to go against our Haiqing. When I think of the grievances Haiqing suffered, I feel guilty. After Jiang Rong finished speaking, Xiao Daoan's eyes flashed. Yes, there were so many people, but he had to go against his daughter. In terms of looks, although his daughter was not bad, she was too sharp. Wasn't that little classmate named Suchu more pleasant? In terms of age, if James liked young girls, then the girl who called Jing Yunjiao's sister looked even younger and more immature. He just had to find Xiao Haiqing, who had the worst temper. Why? Xiao Daoan glanced at his daughter through the mirror. His daughter's appearance was naturally outstanding. In the past, he had always felt that her dressing was not well behaved enough, but now that he took a closer look, although she had short hair, her appearance was indescribably gorgeous. It was just that she had not yet grown. If she were to dress up a little in a few years, she would definitely have an enchanting and charming appearance. At that time, his daughter was standing beside Jing Yunjiao and was very eye-catching. Could it be that she was deliberately trying to attract James' attention? Haiqing had been unruly since she was young. She had been playing around with a bunch of boys in junior high. At that time, he had thought that even if his daughter came home pregnant, he would not be surprised at all, because she had always been that uncaring. Once this thought appeared, it could not be stopped. The more Xiao Daoan looked at it, the more he felt that his daughter had done it on purpose. She had even forgotten who was the one who had provoked James and brought trouble upon himself. Xiao Haiqing did not seem to hear Jiang Rong's words. Her head was tilted on Jing Yunjiao's shoulder, and her gaze was fixed in front of her. She did not move, and no one knew what she was thinking. Haiqing, when you see James, you have to soften your attitude. Although Mr. James does not have any business in the country, he is an expert in investment. Offending him will not do us any good, Xiao Daoan reminded her again. Chapter 584. Xiao Haiqing moved her body. I understand. She was extremely obedient. Jiang Rong looked at her in surprise. Haiqing. Don't make us worry. If you suddenly don't do as your father says, Auntie Jiang, you're right. My father is working very hard. I won't let his career go to waste. Don't worry, Xiao Haiqing said again. Jiang Rong was stunned. Every you was very polite, but for some reason, it made her shudder. When had Xiao Haiqing ever been so polite to her? Even when she had just married into the Xiao family, she was obedient, but there was resistance behind her back. She even became more and more at odds with her. But now, she was so obedient. Jiang Rong thought for a while and said, Haiqing, how should I say this? Actually, it's hard to explain the relationship between a man and a woman. You're an adult now. There's a saying that you should have heard, a day as husband and wife means endless devotion for the rest of your life. Now that the rice has already been cooked, even though our family isn't a traditional family, since it's already like this, we should accept our fate. Don't you think so? She looked at Xiao Haiqing tentatively. Xiao Haiqing's expressionless face slowly curved into a smile. Her voice was gentle. Auntie Jiang, I understand. Jiang Rong's eyes were dazed for a moment. Xiao Haiqing was better off not smiling. She looked like a ghost, gloomy and sinister. Jing Yunjiao didn't ask further. She knew in her heart that Xiao Haiqing couldn't be telling the truth at this time. What was the use of tit for tat? In the past, they couldn't get along, but no matter how much they quarreled, the one who was at a disadvantage was Xiao Haiqing. Not only did she waste her breath, but she also had a stomach full of anger. Dad, a day as husband and wife means endless devotion for the rest of your life. Am I right? Xiao Haiqing suddenly changed the topic. Xiao Daoan's face tightened. Yes, so you just have to be obedient. No wonder Mom still misses Dad. She must be the person who loves you the most in the world, Xiao Haiqing said again. Xiao Daoan was absent-minded for a moment. His deceased wife was naturally a good person. She was docile and sensible. She took care of the housework for him so that he didn't have to worry about anything. She was never noisy and never lost her temper with him. She could endure hardships, however, some people did not have the luck to share their hardships. On the contrary, Jiang Rong was different. She brought good fortune to her husband. Jiang Rong bit her lips and laughed dryly, clenching her fists slightly. Sure enough, Xiao Haiqing did it on purpose. She insisted on mentioning the dead woman and telling her over and over again that she was just a stepmother who had remarried. What a terrible word. Every time she thought of it, she felt aggrieved. She wanted to argue with Xiao Haiqing, but the situation didn't allow her to do so. If they argued too much and Xiao Haiqing got angry again, it would be hard to explain to James. Although her docility made her uncomfortable, it was enough to bring benefits to the Xiao family. Thinking of this, Jiang Rong took a deep breath and revealed a faint smile. She looked at Xiao Haiqing with kindness. On this hot day, the cold wind in the car made people stand up with goosebumps. A few hours later, the four of them arrived in front of the biggest hospital in Ning City. Jing Yunjiao also had a deep impression of this hospital. The doctor who had pretended to be Mrs. He came from here. However, that doctor was exposed. Not only did he lose his job, but he was also scolded badly. James stayed in a private ward on the top floor. The elevator went directly. Once they entered the building, they saw 2 security guards guarding the door. Chapter 585. Xiao Daoan fawningly handed a cigarette to the 2 security guards and said politely, "Please tell James that my surname is Xiao, and I'm the father of the girl from last night." The other party glanced at him condescendingly, then turned and walked in. Within a few seconds, he walked out again and pushed Xiao Daoan in. James' legs were wrapped tightly, and Jiaxi was sitting in front of the bed with a concerned expression. When she saw Jing Yunjiao, she clearly showed some fear. James's white face twitched as he glared at Xiao Haiqing, full of anger. He raised his hand and threw the fruit Jiaxi handed over. That fruit flew toward Xiao Haiqing's face. Jing Yunjiao reached out and caught it, then casually threw it at James' head. In the next moment, James spat out a string of words. His angry expression and ferocious actions directly expressed his current emotions. Jing Yunjiao didn't even need to listen carefully to know that he was cursing at someone. "Mr. James, please calm down. This is all our fault. I brought my daughter here to apologize to you," Xiao Daoan hurriedly said. "You trash, you're dead meat. We made a deal, but you actually couldn't control your own daughter, and now my legs are like this." James chattered on, his anger difficult to extinguish. Xiao Daoan broke out in cold sweat and hurriedly looked at Jiaxi. Miss He, please persuade Mr. James that this was really an accident. She was too drunk, that's why she became like this. I can guarantee that she will be obedient in the future. No matter what request Mr. James makes, I will do my best to fulfill it. I only hope that you can forgive this mistake." "No. You idiot, I will never forgive you." Jiaxi frowned and smoothed out James' anger. "James, it's already like this." James took a deep breath. "You guys go out first. I want to talk to her alone." When Jiaxi heard that, she smiled and directly got up to walk out. When she walked in front of Jing Yunjiao, her expression clearly changed. Jing Yunjiao looked at Xiao Haiqing. Seeing that she didn't refuse, he also went out. "Jing Yunjiao, what did you do to us last night? Why can't I find anything?" Jiaxi asked. She felt that Jing Yunjiao wouldn't simply give her a few needles for no reason. After all, the pain was very mild, and there wasn't a single drop of blood. But last night, she had someone check all over her body, but they didn't find any problems. She didn't know if it was because she was thinking too much, but she felt a little sore in her back today, but the doctor said she was fine. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her. "Miss He, do you think I'll tell you?" "Jing Yunjiao, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You know martial arts, so I can't do anything to you, but don't forget." Jiaxi pointed inside the ward and continued, "What happened to your good friend last night?" If I can do the same thing once, I can do it a second time. What can you do? Beat me up like you did yesterday? Today, her father had already asked someone to hire bodyguards. These bodyguards were different from those trained by companies. They were trained by martial arts sects, and some of them had genuine martial arts skills. Jing Yunjiao could forget about getting close to her, unless Jing Yunjiao killed her at this very moment. But was that even possible? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.